Good afternoon and good morning, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, guys. Sunday. So I'm recording this, and we're gonna record all the. We're gonna be recording all of these sessions, but we've got pretty decent attendance today. We've got most of the group here, which is great. It's always great to see high attendance in these meetings. Phil, Nathaniel, Katrin, Jennigy, Emma, Diane, Brian, and AP Country Manager. What a beautiful name you have.
It might be Thomas.
Thomas, right on, man. Nice to see you guys all here. Really glad that you're all able to make it today. Really glad that we're able to meet you all this month and have you present for the Keto and Carnivore Collective for May 2019. So this has been like a year since we've started doing these, and today is our introductory session. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on here this month, and we're going to give you a basic rundown on how to use Discord, how to get a hold of us if you have any questions, and how this month is going to run. Jessica just pulled off a rogue hair off my face or something. She reached out.
It was this 3-inch long beard hair, but curled up the opposite way as the rest
Oh,
of the
because it
beard.
got stuck when I was eating earlier. It got stuck in my teeth, and it got curled. I gave it like a natural perm with my teeth. Okay. So yeah, today is the first day. We're going to do 2 of these voice sessions per week. One of them will be structured in the beginning, kind of like a lesson, and then at the end we'll go over any questions you guys have. The second session is always a Q&A, so we just talk, we banter with you guys, talk about whatever you want to talk about, whatever questions you've got, just bring them to those Q&A question sections. To mute the microphone, Diane, oh, I got a sneeze coming. Hold on. Oh, excuse me. I got a little seasonal allergies. As soon as I start talking, my nose it gets all plugged up. We've got this transition between the seasons, and it dries out. And there's these little fine grass seeds everywhere, and they could drive me nuts. Almost. Excuse me. Jessica's just laughing at me. She thinks it's hilarious. I forget that this happens almost every year, and every time it's a surprise. It's like, what the hell? This is. Oh, I remember this. I remember it. And then I go outside. I see all these grasses and these seeds open, and they all just look like little knives ready to stab me in the nose. So, yeah, here in the voice chat, Nathan's asking if we should do a separate channel to do like a live voice chat when on the calls. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. We should do that for this one. If people like to type, so sometimes people just jump in and talk with voice. For the first half of this one, we're going to be doing a little bit of the lesson, and then you guys all jump in, and we talk about whatever you need to talk about. So,
Usually the text channel that we focus on when we're doing the live lessons is the main chat and the Q&A questions, right? So if you have a specific...
do one.
Just one?
Yes.
All right. I'll just make one to simplify.
Yeah. So we'll do just a live voice chat. So we'll do a live chat for text chat. Call it live chat. All right, cool. So here's how it works. A lot of you guys have probably never used Discord before. Nathaniel has used Discord before, which is great. If you've not used Discord, we're going to do a quick rundown of how this works. So if you hover over anybody's name, say if you hover over my name, you right-click it, you could send me a message, right? So if you have any questions that you want to ask in private that you don't want to share with other people, then perhaps you could send us a message. We try to answer all of our private messages once per day. So we usually do that by the evening. We try to get that answered and try to get you on your way. If you've got questions that that could be shared with everybody else, throw them in the Q&A question section, and we all talk about those in the live voice chats. If it's just something quick and personal, then you could always just tag us in either main chat if it's concerning diet or whatever you want. And then in the off-topic chat, if it's off-topic, circadian rhythm and sleep chat, that has to do with circadian rhythm and sleep. We're going to talk about how to optimize sleep cycles, how to sync up with our natural light environment to basically yoke our circadian biology to the natural rhythms of light around us, which will help us digest better, help us sleep better, help us reduce inflammation, perform, and recover much better. So the circadian rhythm is something we're going to focus on, especially in weeks 2 and 3. Week 2, we're going to be talking about meal timing. In week 3, we're going to be getting deeper into sleep optimization and deeper circadian rhythm stuff. The Q&A questions, That's just if you got questions for us to answer during the live sessions, you throw them in there. We'll all pop over to the live chat right now. Hop into the live chat channel of the text channels. It's at the bottom there. And you can join us in there if you guys got anything to say. If you want to type it in there in the live chat. Jessica, you're pretty good at giving out a basic rundown of how Discord works. What about microphone settings? If you guys are on a Mac or PC, if you click on the cog that says user settings, then you go over to voice and video settings, and you choose your input device and your output device. Make sure to allow the device to use whatever you are going to be using. You might have to allow your PC to access your microphone, or your mobile device. You might have to allow it to access the mic. You can adjust your input and output volume. You can also put it on push to talk. Push to talk is really useful if you have a lot of background noise. Right? So if you've got kids in the background, if you're in the car and you've got a lot of sound going on around you that might get picked up by the mic, do push to talk, and you just push the button and talk, and we'll be able to hear it. It makes it so we don't have to hear the ambient background noise. You can also set your video settings if you guys want to, you ever get along with someone really well and you do video chat with them. You can click on anybody's name and you can try to video call them. You can invite them as a friend and they can accept your video call. So that's just the basics of Discord. Most of our energy in here gets spent in the live voice chats. So we do these 2 times per week. We record everything. So you're going to have full access to all the materials we share with you throughout this month, throughout the entire month. All the materials you will have at your fingertips after this is over. So there's no rush. We're not in a hurry to just absorb all this information and fix every single one of our problems right away on day one. We're all coming from different places. So absorb the information, take it in as it comes, and you're going to learn a lot. You're going to find a lot of these things when you implement them in your life and your daily habits. Circadian rhythm optimization especially, you are going to find that these are habits that can last, that you can use long term for the rest of your life. Because that's what we're going here. That's what we're going for here. We want to create a solid foundation of habits that you guys can stick with long term. We're not here for just like a short, quick, funky diet, or let's do a low carb diet for a little bit. If we want to get lasting results, we've got to use these tools as they apply, right? So having this at your disposal, having a tool like a ketogenic diet or carnivorous diet, it doesn't mean you have to do it all the time. But if you do want to maintain results, long-term lifestyle changes are required. So you want to lose that weight, you want to keep it off, you got to find a way of living that allows you to maintain that weight loss, and that means habits, long-term habits. So that's what we're working on here, not short-term fixes. We're not looking at just starving ourselves into oblivion and losing a bunch of weight. We're not looking at just, if your goal is to gain weight, it's not just, eat as much food as you can all the time. That's unsustainable. We got to find sustainable habits and learn sustainable cycles of using these habits that we can do long-term. So keto diet, very powerful diet, very, very powerful for reducing inflammation, boosting cognition in many people. A lot of us deal with brain fog, the constant up and down blood sugar roller coaster that we're going through all day. That gets completely eliminated when you remove the carbohydrates and train your body to burn fat. And that's what we're all here to do. We're all here using a fat-based diet. There's a couple people in the group who are looking to gain weight. All right, so there are situations where you might be undulating or changing your carbohydrate intake a little bit. But for the most part, all of us are doing a low carbohydrate approach. All of us are looking for reduced inflammation. We all want stable blood sugar. We all want to improve our performance physically and mentally. So we're here to help you with all that. We're here to help you dial in your habits, dial in your lifestyle, and we're here to support you. So the rules are be nice to each other. Don't argue over nonsense. We're here to support each other, and we've never had any problems with anybody, arguing or fighting in the chats. But, play nice. So we're here to support each other. We're here to show each other what we know. We're here to rather share with each other what we know, and we're here to learn. So let's all be open to the experience. Let's all enjoy each other's company and presence, and let's all get to know each other this month. And let's all set up the habits, set up the lifestyle that we can maintain long term and we can enjoy long term. So what else? What else do we have to hear about the structure of course, Jessica. The hub. How do people get into the hub?
So far, I've sent everybody 2 emails. The first one went out on Friday the 3rd, and the second one was a welcome packet that went out this morning. So definitely be sure that you're getting our emails and that Keto Collective at primaledgehealth.com is on your safe list. In the welcome packet this morning, I sent out links to both of our keto ebooks and shopping list and resources for the keto diet and carnivore diet. In that email, there's also referenced what we call our Keto and Carnivore Collective Hub, which is a special website page that we host for you, and it contains all the information of this session, right? So all of the audio recordings will be posted and saved there. All of the meal prep lessons that I share will be there, and then extra resources like shopping lists, macro tracking guides, any sort of video recommendations or exterior information will be posted there and saved, and that's a place that's password protected, so you can go back in anytime you want, and this is what we consider lifetime access, right? As long as we have our business to run and our website's up, you can go into this page and review as needed or refresh your memory on something that we were talking about. All the information is going to be kept there for you, and this month's password is going to be capital KCCM, which is Keto and Carnivore Collective May.
And those are all capital.
All capital.
KCCM. And you guys will get this in an email as well. Make sure to ensure that the emails, your emails, that our emails to you are not going to spam, so you receive all the information that we have to share.
Oh, and then I update that hub every Friday afternoon.
So if you want to tag anybody, this is just I'll give a little rundown of how to use Discord. If you want to tag anybody, you use the @ sign. In Spanish you call it an arroba, but it's the @ So you could tag @ somebody's name, and you'll tag them in a message. They'll receive a notification as long as they have notifications turned on. They'll receive a notification, and you can tag everyone. If you tag everyone, everyone's going to receive a notification. So if you just have like a smiley face emoticon that you want to tag at everyone, probably not best, because then everyone will get a notification. But if you've got, something that you want to share with everybody, or if you have a question that you want, everybody to maybe see, then you can tag everyone. We'll tag everyone pretty often because we'll announce when we're going to be in live voice chat or remind you guys of certain things or share certain information. So, but you guys are also welcome to tag everyone if you think it applies to everybody. You're free to DM us or others privately as long as you have your or what is it called? What's the setting called to make sure that so that they can private message each other if they want to? Do they have to be friends? Is that how it works?
I don't think so. I think as long as they're in this server, they can DM people.
Okay, yeah, you should be able. Yeah,
We're not
okay.
friends necessarily.
They might have to allow the DMs. There might be a setting to allow direct messages, but you guys can DM each other if you need. There are pinned posts in each section. So if you come over to the main chat, and there's a pin at the very top, a little pin icon. If you click that, it's going to show all the pinned messages, which there are none yet. But we're going to be sharing with you some resources, and when we share important resources that we think you guys would be able to benefit from later on down the line, we're going to pin them in the sections. All right, so there might be videos or studies or something that line up with what we're talking about that we'll pin up there to share with you guys. So most of you have a display name that makes it easy to know who you are. Sometimes that's helpful. If your display name is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it might be hard to address you. So I see everyone's names are really straightforward. Thank you so much for that. It helps us to know who we're talking to. Make sure to adjust your notifications as you want. So if you want notifications when people tag you, if you want notifications when there's a new post from the administrators in the Discord server, allow those notifications. But if you prefer to have no notifications on your device, then you can also turn notifications off and just check in here at your whenever you want, at your convenience. All right, so the questionnaires. We've gotten questionnaires from almost everyone, right?
Yeah, everybody.
From everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that might be a
There was
first.
one person
Where
this morning
everyone...
that's not in the Discord.
Okay, great. So we got questionnaires from everybody. Almost everybody is signed in. This is awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, I guess that's all the administrative stuff we have to talk about. Now let's get to the meat of it. Let's talk about the lesson for today. Most people in here, let's see, we've got notes here on all of your questionnaires. Most people in here are either beginning a ketogenic diet, starting a ketogenic diet, or starting a carnivore diet, transitioning from a ketogenic diet, which is really cool. A lot of carnivore curious people and people who are doing a carnivore diet already, which is great. There are a few people who've been doing long-term keto and want better results, want to dial in their macros, want to dial in their lifestyle and figure out what's going on and kind of get out of the confusion. I know there's a lot of conflicting information out there. There's a lot of information out there on the internet. Anything you want to start researching on the internet, you're going to run into 1,000 different rabbit holes you could dive down, 1,000 different opinions, and all these people say that they are right. We're here to share our perspective with you and try to give you guys a broad overview on all the most important issues. And we've been doing this for quite a while. We've been coaching people on a ketogenic diet for like 5 years now, and it's we've got a lot of data, so we do have a pretty good knowledge base, and we're here to share that knowledge with you and help support you through this process and help you in whatever way you please. So let's see. Let me go over here in the live chat to see you guys. I see you guys are chatting a little bit in there. Today we're going to talk about macronutrients, micronutrients, a ketogenic diet and a carnivorous diet. We're going to talk about protein, fat, carbohydrates, what their function are, and what they do in the body and how our body treats these macronutrients and these calories quite differently. So yeah, let's start out and let's talk about the macros. A lot of people start out a ketogenic diet, they never even heard of macros, right? They're like, what the heck are macros? When people are saying the word macros, they're talking about macronutrients. They're just nutrients that are available in food in large quantities. Right? Macronutrients, as opposed to micronutrients, which are available in small quantities in foods. So macronutrients are protein, fat, and carbohydrate. Protein, fat, and carbs. Those are the macronutrients that we are concerned with. Protein is a building block macronutrient. Right? It makes up the physical structure of the body. Your DNA is coding for these proteins that then get generated in the body and create our tissues. So they function, there's many functions for proteins, including maintaining bone mineral density, right? So if you need, or if you don't get enough protein, rather, you're going to see things like sarcopenia, osteopenia, loss of bone mineral density, loss of muscle mass. Hair loss, right? Thyroid, yep. I've got notes here, then Jessica's telling me the notes before I read them. She's got it. You need protein for hormones. You need it for making human growth hormone. You need to gain or maintain lean muscle mass, you're going to want to intake protein. In fact, you're going to want to eat protein no matter what diet you're on. There is a minimum requirement for protein. And if you have a good solid foundational habit of getting in sufficient protein every day, you don't have to worry so much about the other two macronutrients. So protein is the cornerstone macro, and that's why we talk about it first. We all have minimum protein requirements. If we go below that, we're going to get problems. We're not going to be able to put on or maintain muscle mass. We're not going to get satiety, and we're going to be stressed out. Right? Lack of protein leads to lack of lean muscle mass, lack of bone mineral density, lack of satiety. All right, so we get skinny fat, start eating the other macros in great abundance together, and we're not focusing on getting sufficient protein. All sorts of bad things happen. So get in enough protein. That's lesson number one here. Protein's the cornerstone macro. A lot of people start getting into a ketogenic diet. They read about keto. They think it's all about coconut oil. They think it's all about butter. Now, fat is the fuel source on a ketogenic diet. But when you're looking at natural sources of food, like unprocessed foods, fat always comes with protein. Protein always comes with fat. So we want to focus the diet. A majority of our diet should be focused on fatty cuts of meat. Whether you're on a carnivore diet or a keto diet, fatty meat is the heart of the diet. Like, yes, you can get protein from nuts. You're also getting a lot of anti-nutrients that don't allow your body to digest micronutrients that you need. Yes, you can get protein from vegetables. but the amino acid profile makes it very unsuitable for assimilation and even digestion by humans. So we have to look at protein sources as meat, right? Beef, fish, eggs, decent source of protein as well. And fat, in the natural world, always comes with protein. A lot of people who've been interested in the ketogenic diet, they start learning about keto and they get kind of freaked out about protein because everybody's telling them you need to eat a high-fat diet and you need to eat moderate protein, but they never define what moderate protein is, right? These are all just language games. They'll say, if you eat too much protein, it's going to turn to sugar in the body. It's going to turn to sugar. Well, that's actually untrue as well, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Nice. Nathaniel's asking about gluconeogenesis as well. It's your body does not just turn extra protein into sugar. Your body is not stressed out by you eating protein. Protein is not hard on the kidneys, as the vegans all like to say. In fact, protein is required for proper kidney function. If you're worried about kidneys and protein, look into the work of Dr. Jason Fung. He did a really good podcast with the HPO podcast, Sean Baker's podcast. Jessica, will you get a link to the HPO podcast with Jason Fung? And throw that up in the main chat. So one of the little study pieces we'll give you guys this week concerning protein. And this is a really cool conversation. I think it might be 2 hours. It's at least an hour long with Dr. Jason Fung talking about protein, its effect on the kidneys, its effect on health, and the importance and necessity of protein in the diet and why we don't need to worry about eating protein. So check this resource out. We'll pin that over there in the main chat, I guess. Or no, should we do the live chat? No, pin it in the main chat. What do you think? I don't care. You look conflicted.
Well, maybe the live chat, right? Because it's on the live call, so just for the sake of consistency.
Yeah, pin it in the live chat.
Okay.
And we'll keep all the links we share in here as a pinned.
Yes. And we'll go on the hub at the end of the week.
Yeah. Nathaniel says maybe use a resources channel, but there'll just be multiple.
I think it's redundant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
be kind of redundant. Because each one of these text chat ends up having its own pinned post section.
Yeah.
And then what we do is we send out all the resources at the end. We consolidate them all and we put them in
On the hub.
for you guys on the hub. So, yeah. All right. Thanks for the input, Nathaniel. So, protein, not an energy source. It's a building block macro. We need it for building muscle. We need it for maintaining muscle. We need it for life. We need protein. Everybody needs it, whether you're eating carbs or not. The next two macronutrients are energy source macros: carbohydrate and fat. First, we're going to talk about fat, because fat is essential. We have essential amino acids and we have essential fatty acids. We need to eat fat. We need to eat protein. Fat's an energy macro. In fact, fat is the energy macronutrient that we store in the most abundance throughout our body. Right? We can break down protein and oxidize it for energy, but it's about context. If you eat way too much protein, not enough fat, not enough carbohydrate at all, you can break down your muscle tissue. You can break down that protein also and burn it for fuel. We don't want to do that. So like protein sparing modified fast, this is a very short-term strategy for losing weight really quickly. People eat enough protein to where they get some satiety, but they're still usually miserable because they're eating lean protein. And they basically try to fill up on just protein, eat no carbs, no fat. That is a recipe for disaster. The thyroid does not like that. It does not feel good. You get super hungry, and a lot of people are prone to weight gain after such practices. So eat protein, but don't eat only protein. The two energy macros are important as well. We don't want to make our body use protein for energy or give ourselves only protein. We want to eat it with the fat. I guess we'll talk about gluconeogenesis first as well. I kind of skipped that. Sorry, I got distracted by the new text channels and whatnot. Gluconeogenesis, a lot of people have been told you got to limit protein on keto. You got to watch out. If you eat too much protein, it turns to glucose. Your body's going to turn protein into glucose as it needs to. Now, if you're eating no fat and no carbohydrates and tons of protein, your body might skew towards using amino acids for fuel and turning protein into glucose at a certain rate. But you're still going to burn body fat. You're just going to be miserable, right? Gluconeogenesis is actually a process through which you turn protein into carbohydrate and use it as fuel. And this is a process that the body does as it needs to, right? So in a low carbohydrate state, we actually need to engage in gluconeogenesis to create some glucose for the brain. There's parts of the brain, there's parts of the body that need glucose, that can't run on ketones, which is the byproduct of the breakdown of fatty acids. So your body is so clever, your body's so intelligent, it's going to partition all your glucose. When you restrict carbohydrates and start burning fat for fuel, you will restrict the use of glucose, and your body will make it as it needs and send it through the liver to different parts of the body that require it. So gluconeogenesis is the friend of ketosis, not the enemy of ketosis. And as long as we're getting enough protein and not overdoing it astronomically, which enough protein for most of us, the easiest way to figure out how much protein you need is we do about 0.6 up to 0.9 grams per pound of your goal body weight or your lean body mass. All right, so for somebody who is trying to gain some weight or maintain their weight, you're going to want to use probably about 0.8, so somewhere in between 0.6 and 0.9 grams per pound of your lean body mass. If you have a lot of weight to lose, use your goal body mass, right? Because protein requirements are most easily calculated by the amount of lean muscle mass you have, right? So if you're very overweight and you have a lot of fat mass, but you weigh 225 pounds, you're going to have different protein requirements than somebody who's 225 pounds at 10% body fat, very lean, right? Super muscular, super lean. So we're going to want to use lean body mass to calculate protein needs. So it's actually really easy to figure out your lean body mass. If you're trying to gain weight, this is appropriate. If you're trying to lose a bunch of weight, use your goal body weight, right? So say you're 225 pounds and you want to be 150 pounds. Your protein requirements would be probably somewhere around 0.8 grams per pound of your goal body weight. So 0.8 times 150. So most of us are probably going to be within a range of about 75 up to, depending on how big you are and what your goals are, like 150 grams of protein per day. None of us need to be going crazy with the protein. That's a moderate protein amount. We're going to be burning fat for fuel. Now, there are cases when you might want more protein, cases where you might want less protein. All right, if you are trying to build a bunch of muscle, if you're an athlete, work out a lot, you might want to be on the higher end of that protein, right? Like 0.9 grams per pound of your body mass, your lean body mass. If you're very young and you're growing, you might want to be on the higher end. If you're trying to maintain weight or lose body fat, you might not need to be on the highest end of the protein intake. Usually eating protein to satiety, getting enough protein in, fatty protein sources, usually we end up naturally restricting our calories and able to burn fat really easily. So for Emma, she says, does 100 grams sound right? Yes. About 100 grams is probably perfect. Now, I don't really have her questionnaire. Pull out the questionnaires and we can have those for the questions here at the end. So protein, we've all got minimum protein requirements. Get that in. It's not going to turn to glucose in the blood. It's not going to turn to sugar. Excess protein is something that's hard to do. We're looking at about 100 grams of protein per day for a lot of us. Probably going to be between somewhere in like 70 and 120, depending on how tall you are, depending on how big you are, depending on how much lean muscle mass you have. And remember, there's about 90 to 100 grams of protein per pound of meat. All right, so when you look on the nutrition facts on your food, when you look at like a burger or something, like a hamburger patty, let's just look up, for instance, do a quick search here so I don't get the numbers wrong. 1 pound ground beef, 80%. So 1 pound of ground beef, 80% lean, 20% fat. It's by weight. Right? So 20% of the weight is fat, 20% is lean. That's going to have about 90 grams of fat and 78 grams of protein. So if it's 70% lean, then it's going to be a little bit fattier. It'll have a little bit higher fat calories too. So for a lot of us, we're going to be at about 16 ounces of meat per day. Some of us at like 20. Depending if it's ground beef. If it's like a ribeye, it'll be slightly different. You can find out just through a quick Google search, or you can use one of these macro tracking apps like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer. Both of those are good ways of tracking macros, but they're not always super accurate. Right, we want to be focusing the diet on whole, unrefined foods. It's kind of harder to get the exact macros on a steak. All right, but a steak is always going to be a lot easier to hit your macronutrient requirements with than a very varied diet where you're eating a lot of nuts and seeds and stuff, which we definitely don't recommend because of the anti-nutrient content. Tisha says, I'm confused. I eat 3 meals a day, so about 33 grams per meal. Exactly. There you go. And you're not confused at all. That's enough. So if you're going to be going for 100, no, well, I haven't looked at her. She's talking about Emma's situation. So Emma says, does 100 grams sound right? And that does sound right for a lot of people, for a lot of the average sized person.
For Emma, right? She's 5'2". She could do 75.
Emma's 5'2". She's going to be at about 75 to 90 grams of protein probably. So Emma, about 75 to 90 grams of protein. And then fat is the next macronutrient we're going to talk about. And if you guys have any questions about your specific situation, how much protein you need, we'll go over all that here at the end. Don't worry. So Tisha's 5'6", 210 pounds. So yeah, we'll talk about your situation at the end. I'm getting derailed here a lot. Stay focused. Got kids screaming in the background. My nose is stuffed up. I'm sorry, guys. My head is just not here. My head is in a different gravity today. You know when it feels like your head's a balloon because your nose is so stuffed up? So, yeah, that's protein. We all got minimum protein requirements. 0.6 to 0.9 grams per pound of your lean body mass, your goal body weight is enough protein. So, fat is the energy macro that we're most focused on. Carbohydrate is another energy macro that's absolutely unnecessary, and your body can make the glucose it needs from either protein or the backbone of fatty acids, which is called glycerol. So your body can actually break down fat and turn it to glucose as it needs to as well. So fat's the energy macro. When we are burning fat, we can burn it either from the plate or from our body, which, like we said earlier, that's where we store, or that's the energy macronutrient, rather, that we store throughout our entire body ubiquitously. Every single cell has fats in it, right? Our cell membranes are made of cholesterol. Our body is made up of fat. It is the macronutrient that is in our body at the highest level, or the highest levels of any macronutrient we're going to find in our body are going to be fat. And we can use that very effectively as fuel. It's very easy to burn. What happens, though, is when we get a lot of carbohydrate, we're not able to tap into our body fat stores. We're not able to tap into that fat. And a lot of us are here to lose body fat. So we can burn fat from the plate or from the body. How much fat we burn from our body depends on how much fat we put on our plate. Now, that doesn't mean you just restrict all fat from the diet if you want to burn it. We still want to get some dietary fat. They're essential fatty acids, essential amino acids. If you don't get enough fat, you're going to be stressed out. Your body's going to think it's starving, and it's not going to be easy to lose body fat. So we want to get a moderate amount of fat in if we're going for fat loss. And if you're going for fat loss, which is usually the people who are the most eager for results are the fat loss, right? Because you hear about keto and you're like, dang, this person lost like 100 pounds in a year. That's amazing. I got to do that. So it's the fat loss. It is quick on a ketogenic diet. It is very efficient for losing fat. But we don't want to stress the body out too much, right? So we don't want to do an unsustainable diet where it's just protein with too much restricted fat. We want to get in a moderate amount of fat. So for every gram of protein you intake, most people here are going to be taking in at least 1 gram of fat per gram of protein. 1 gram of fat per gram of protein is actually pretty intense fat loss for most people. But if you have, 50, 100 pounds to lose, it's going to make it really, really easy, right? So you might lose several pounds a week if you've got a lot of fat to lose. If you just got like 5, 10 pounds to drop, it can take weeks or a few months. In the beginning, when you're losing a lot of weight, 50, 60, 100 pounds, it goes quick. And you'll be amazed at how quickly the fat falls off when you just start out this diet when you have a lot of fat to lose. Some of that is inflammation. Our fat cells, they fill up with water as well, and they expand with water. So we actually hold a lot of inflammation and water around the fat that's stored in our body too. So it goes quick in the beginning. If you're very lean, it goes a little slower. But most of us are going to want to take in at least 1 gram of fat per gram of protein to start. If you're just starting out keto, it might not be so easy to digest the fat. There is an adaptation period. We've got gut microbiota. We have our entire gut microbiome made up of all these different bacteria that are constantly feeding on food. And we're pulling out the major fuel source for some of these, and we're replacing the fuel source with fat. A lot of them are used to burning glucose. A lot of these are glucose-dependent organisms. So there can be shifts in the gut microbiome. There can be shifts in digestion. Usually within a couple weeks, this clears up. Sometimes people just aren't hungry for the food. Sometimes your hunger goes so low. Sometimes you're not used to like digesting the fat. Your body has to upregulate certain bile excretions. You got to upregulate all sorts of different physiological processes in the body, because it's a totally different pathway to burn fat than it is to burn glucose. That being said, there is a period of adaptation. If you're trying to get adapted to the diet, it's best not to try to make your body burn a bunch of body fat. You want to set up the habits to where you can maintain this long term. So when you're starting out the diet, get at least 1 gram of fat per gram of protein. Most people are going to be at about 1.5 grams, up to 2 grams of fat per gram of protein in the beginning. So say you're going for 100 grams of protein. Most of us would probably want about 150 grams of fat to start out the diet. We can adjust from there. You might want to go up a little bit. You might want to go down a little bit, depending on the goals, depending on how you're feeling. But in the beginning, we want to give ourselves an abundance of fat so that our body is not stressed out. We're going to tell it, hey, here's the protein you need. You've got the building blocks right there. Here's the energy macronutrient that we're going to be burning. You've got enough of it here, and you can burn some body fat if you need. Don't stress out. Let's adapt to this. So that's what we want to signal to the body with our meals. And we want to focus those meals on fatty cuts of meat, on fat, and on low carbohydrate vegetables if you're including vegetables. All right, so low carbohydrate vegetables being stuff like, salads, basically, right? All the boring stuff that nobody really likes, right? None of the fun ones like the sugar and the fruits and stuff like that. Those are not low carbohydrate. You can use some berries every once in a while, but it's really not recommended in the beginning to take in low carbohydrate fruit when you're starting out. But stuff like, there's certain squashes that are pretty low in carbs.
Right. We're thinking of things like broccoli, cauliflower, lettuces, mushrooms, celery, cucumber.
Mushrooms aren't even a vegetable, but people
True.
count those.
Okay.
A lot of those are
Sure.
fruits too.
Right.
Avocado
being a
that's another
fruit.
one. Avocado is very high in fat, monounsaturated fat, which is great.
I sent a really helpful shopping list for both the ketogenic diet and carnivore diets. That is included in the email that went out this morning, and I'll put those links quickly now in the meal prep room too. I'll pin them, so if anybody missed it, it's a nice little downloadable thing you can print out and maybe keep in your glove box or keep in your purse or something. You can reference that when you're out shopping if you have any questions, or if you're looking for some variety. There's some ideas there for you.
Right. We want to be keeping it simple, right? We're not looking for like a culinary tour. We're looking at creating a diet that we can maintain long term, right? So if you're going to include vegetables, you want to go for stuff like cucumber, celery, summer squashes, zucchini, greens, but don't think that they're absolutely necessary. We're definitely not here going to tell you that you need 10 cups of vegetables per day. We've seen loads of people eat way too many vegetables and kind of ruin their gut. A lot of us are dealing with chronic inflammatory conditions as well, and might not realize that we have some sensitivities to some of these plant foods. So suddenly you start eating tons of kale and spinach, and you don't realize that you've got a high sensitivity to oxalate, and your health might start declining. So we want to look at plants as optional. Carbohydrates are optional foods. What's necessary is fat and protein. So we're going to focus on the fatty cuts of meat, on the fatty fish, eggs, chicken's fine, bacon's fine, pork, wild game, lamb, any ruminant animal, probably going to be at the top of the hierarchy of beneficial foods for you. So it's basically the complete opposite of what you would have heard before. It's not, you got to eat all your salads, you got to fill up on as much fiber as you can. No, we're talking about eating the meat, eating the rich foods, right? Eating the most rich foods to where when you eat it, you're not feeling bloated. It's not like you eat a whole bunch of pasta at the end of the meal. You're just like, blah. After a good keto meal, you're going to get used to feeling just good. You're going to get used to feeling not full, as in your belly's expanding, right? You're going to get used to feeling satiated. So we want to focus on nutrient density. All right, so if you want to include vegetables, it's fine, but you don't need a lot. You want to keep those carbs under 30 grams net carbs per day in order to be in a ketotic state. If you're doing a carnivore diet, you want to be also making sure to get enough fat. Because we were talking about fat. I'm jumping around a little bit because I'm seeing questions come up about carbohydrates and stuff. But if you're on a carnivore diet, you're going to want to be eating that fat from animal fats. Butter's fine for a lot of people. Some people feel better without any dairy at all. Or if you're doing straight carnivore, you're going to be wanting to be focusing on animal fats. So using stuff like suet. Suet's a really good one. Mm-hmm. You can get suet from a local butcher, cut it up into small pieces, throw it on the skillet next to your steak. Really good. Tallow, another really good one. That's basically rendered fat. Good fat source. Butter, I already mentioned. Sheep suet, sheep fat can be really affordable and pretty easy to find throughout a lot of the U.S. So, fat sources, right? We're going to be looking at saturated fats, monounsaturated fats, especially from animals, as the best sources of fat. Of course, coconut oil and stuff are fine, especially on a keto diet. But animal fats are always going to be more satiating and are going to have a better vitamin and mineral content than something that's isolated like coconut oil, right? Or something like olive oil even. Olive oil is fine also. It's a monounsaturated fat, right? So there's 3 types of fat. Monounsaturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, and, what's the other one? Monounsaturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, and saturated fat. Sorry, I thought I said saturated. Monounsaturated fat is found in animal foods and some plant foods like avocado and olives. Saturated fat is found in animal foods. There's like one plant food that I can think of, coconut oil, that has saturated fat. We store a lot of saturated and monounsaturated fat throughout our body. Our body stores so much saturated fat in it because it can burn it so well. So, fat, crucial. Focus on fat from animals, not the plant fats, not the vegetable oils. Focus on animal fats and animal protein. Animal proteins always come with that fat in it, and that's going to be the main source of nutrition in the diet. Whether you're eating plants or not, a majority of the calories on that plate are going to be coming from animal foods. So we want to really focus on like nose to tail eating as well. We encourage people to try out stuff like liver, heart, bone marrow, suet, which is the fat around the kidney. Some of these are really affordable. They can make it really easy to get in some more fats on a carnivorous diet or a ketogenic diet. Let's see what else here. So fish, not the best source of fat, but there are some pretty fatty fish. Salmon has a lot of fat. Swordfish has a lot of fat compared to other fish. Best sources of fat are always going to be from ruminant animals, though. Fatty steaks, fatty meat. So burgers without a bun, steaks, eggs, great source of fat. Lots of choline in eggs as well. Carbohydrates are absolutely optional. So the carbs you can eat, low glycemic carbohydrates, right? But they're absolutely optional. You don't need them. Protein, fat, and carbohydrates. 2 of those, totally necessary. 1 of them, unnecessary. We can go our whole life without eating any carbohydrates. Not saying we should, but we could. So protein and fat, necessary. Carbohydrates, not required. We want to make sure we're getting enough protein to bring us satiety, enough protein to maintain and gain lean muscle mass, enough fat to bring satiety as well and get the essential fatty acids in and not starve ourselves. But if we want to burn body fat, we can adjust the fat after the initial adaptation period and see how much body fat we can burn comfortably. I know a lot of us are eager to burn that body fat, but let's get started by getting adapted to the diet. Let's focus on adaptation. It usually takes a few days to feel back at baseline level. Usually after 3 to 4 or 5 days, people say that something feels like it just switches on. Your body starts burning ketones for fuel. Your body breaks down fatty acids in the liver, turns this into these ketones, which have all sorts of powerful signaling mechanisms in the body. They reduce inflammation. They're a cleaner burning fuel. So you're needing less oxygen. You're creating less oxidative stress. than if you're using carbohydrates. And once you start getting adapted to burning fat, you're able to have steady energy throughout the day. You're not hungry all the time. You're not getting these blood sugar rises and falls constantly. You have consistent energy, and you're able to tap into that body fat really effectively. So the adaptation takes a few days, takes a few weeks. The longer you go, the better you feel. 3 months in, you're still going to be getting deeper adaptations to the diet. Your body's going to be getting even better at burning fat. This is something that does take time. But Brenda's asking, how long, or how do I tell if I'm fat adapted? You can tell you're fat adapted by, you're going to have stable blood sugar all day, right? You're not going to be getting these huge troughs and spikes in blood glucose because you're eating protein and fat. The carbohydrates are very limited. You're going to have steady energy. And you're going to have good mental clarity and cognition. So how do you tell if you're fat adapted? If you're not eating carbs and you feel good, that's when you're fat adapted, basically. Because in the first few days when you're not eating carbs, you're not going to feel so good. I'm sorry. It's going to be a few days of adaptation. It almost feels like you're like withdrawing from the sugar sometimes, right? So the adaptation does take time. A lot of people start getting concerned with things like blood ketones. They start obsessing over the blood ketones. We're not so worried with that here. So Brenda says my ketone level isn't very high, but is that in urine or is that in blood ketones? Because if you're measuring with urine strips, what happens? There's these the urine strips. They're called, what do they call them? Keto sticks, I think. They're just called keto sticks. So you start in the beginning. You're using these keto sticks and you're measuring your urine. You're going to be spilling a lot of ketones, right? Your body doesn't know how to use them yet, and it's being flooded with them. It takes adaptation in the mitochondria. So inside of our cells, there's these little energy-producing organelles called mitochondria. That's where electrons enter in. Those electrons go over the mitochondrial membrane, and you create ATP out of these energy sources, fat or carbohydrate. Now, in order to burn fat, you have to use the mitochondria. Whereas to burn carbohydrate, you don't need the same mitochondrial function. So you have to create more mitochondria in all your cells, in all your muscles, in order to burn the fat. So what happens is you're flooding the body with a fat source, with ketones that are being made from that fat source, but your body doesn't know how to use them, so you pee them out. Now, blood ketones are often very high in people when they first start out a ketogenic diet as well. And that's probably because of the same effect. We're not burning the ketones as well when we first start out, and we get more efficient at it, and our body will maintain a narrow bandwidth of ketones in the blood. So anywhere above 0.5 is ketosis. Now, deep fasting, you might be at like 3.0 or higher. Deep ketosis, like 3.0 and up. But anything above 0.5 in the blood is ketosis. But I am not saying that everybody should be measuring. In fact, I think most people should save their money. What I want to train you how to do is to set up a lifestyle that you can enjoy, that you can feel. Right? We should be able to feel what's going on in the body and to understand what it needs, to feed the body at the right times, the nutrients it needs, and to fuel the body with what it requires. So what's cool about keto and carnivore is you're stripping out all the non-essentials, and you're getting down to what the body really needs. And you get down to the most nutrient-dense, nutrient-rich, flavorful, and amazing foods. That's what's so cool. Like, nobody ate a fatty steak and said, I don't know about that. I don't know if that was that good. Every single fatty steak ever eaten has been thoroughly enjoyed. It's a fact. Right? No, I'm joking, but partially joking, because steak is just so good. Right? I mean, how many people hate vegetables? Good news, you don't need them. There's nothing in the vegetables that you're not going to be getting from meat. And when you remove a lot of the anti-nutrients from these vegetable foods that we're eating, from all the grains, from the soy, the wheat, the corn, all these anti-nutrients actually block the absorption of other vitamins and minerals and block the production of things like B vitamin. So our body actually has bacteria that produce things like B vitamins. When we reduce carbohydrate intake, when we reduce fiber intake even, we're going to see upregulation in other microbes that break down things like amino acids and fatty acids and create neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, that create vitamins like folate, which a lot of people are deficient in. You know, it's crazy. There was a guy who was doing a long-term carnivore diet. He got gut microbiome testing before and after, and he saw a massive increase in the production, or in the presence of, rather, bacteria that are known to create folate. So there are actually different vitamin and mineral requirements that depend on our dietary intake of foods. So if we're eating a lot of grains, if we're eating standard American diet, the recommended daily allowances or recommended daily intake of a lot of these vitamins is going to be quite different from if we're eating a meat-based, animal food-based diet, right? Because the nutrients that we're absorbing change depending on the context of our diet. It's pretty crazy. Just because a piece of spinach has a bunch of calcium in it doesn't mean that when you eat that spinach, you're actually getting the calcium from that spinach. So spinach, for instance, has a lot of oxalate. So oxalic acid can bind up with calcium when you eat it. So the oxalic acid in the spinach is actually binding to the calcium and making it undigestible. All right, so when we're eating something like a steak, which might on paper not have as much calcium as spinach, we're actually absorbing the calcium and absorbing the nutrients that are coming from that. Interesting concepts, right? So throwing some teasers out there to kind of get you guys interested in some of the deeper aspects of digestion, of the recommended daily allowances. In fact, let's share that Amber O'Hearn. Pull up the Amber O'Hearn, the recent speech at Carnivore Con, and share that one in the live chat. So there's two videos that I want you guys to, one podcast and then one video, or you can just listen to the audio, that I want you guys to check out this week. The one is on protein intake with Dr. Jason Fung, to understand that protein is required. It's not to be feared. We need it. We don't want to eat only protein, but we need that protein. The other one is from Amber O'Hearn, and she talks a little bit about the RDAs, nutrient absorption and availability, and bioavailability of nutrients in this talk. And I think it's a very interesting one, especially since a lot of people in here are fascinated with the concept of anti-nutrients in plants, and are probably, I know a few of us are transitioning into or already benefiting from a carnivorous approach to a ketogenic diet. Okay, last thing we're going to talk about the macros there. Keeping those carbs low, getting in enough protein and fat. Protein based on your lean body mass or on your goal body weight. Getting sufficient protein, sufficient fat, at least 1 to like 1.5 grams of fat per gram of protein when you're starting out. And at least 0.6 to 0.9 grams of protein per pound of your body weight or your lean body weight. I'm sorry, your goal body weight or your lean body weight. So say you want to be 140, that you think that's your goal body weight. 0.8 times 140 is always going to give you absolutely sufficient protein. Okay, let's talk about electrolytes. So electrolytes is something else that a lot of people when they're starting out keto got to be concerned with. What happens when you switch your dietary fuel source, when you switch out those carbs for the fats? You start burning fat, the body reduces insulin excretion. So you're going to become insulin sensitive, and that's a really good thing. You're going to stop putting out so much insulin all the time because you're not taking in all those carbs. Every gram of insulin our body uses will maintain about 5 grams of glycogen storage. So when you have a high insulin diet, you usually have a lot of water retention. What happens when you get on a ketogenic diet, your body dumps a lot of that water weight. You don't require that water in the intracellular matrix in the same way as you do on a carbohydrate-based diet. So very interesting adaptation effects happen. With that water usually goes some electrolytes, salt, magnesium, and potassium. So people usually talk about what's called keto flu. Keto flu could have to do with several different things going on at the same time, right? People are adapting to a ketogenic diet. They pull out the carbohydrates, body drops insulin levels, you lose some electrolytes. You lose some body weight, you lose some water off the body, and you lose some electrolytes. If you correct for those electrolytes, it will minimize the negative effects of this adaptation thing that people call keto flu. So just making sure to get enough salt is one of the easiest things to do. Right? It's one of the easiest ways to balance the electrolytes out. Salt your food. All right? Try to get like at least a quarter teaspoon to a half teaspoon of salt on each meal, especially when you're first starting out. Salt it to taste. Take a bite, and if you think it could use some more salt, it means it does need more salt. So use salt liberally. Salt to taste, and understand the function of sodium in retaining water in the body and and creating an electrical current. And if we get too low in sodium, what happens is our body will pull water from the blood. So your body will actually pull out fluids from circulation to increase the sodium levels in the blood so that you can have the correct electrolyte balance so that you can live, right? Because we need a narrow bandwidth of energy substrates and electrolyte substrates in the blood at any time to stay alive. So the body's real clever. You get low in sodium, the body's going to pull water out to balance out the sodium levels in the blood. But that can make you feel really tired. You can get kind of lightheaded, dizzy, lethargy. Your heart starts having to pump harder because the blood is thinned out. So your heart might be racing. If you just make sure to get enough salt in, that usually takes care of this for most people. Sodium, magnesium, and potassium are very easily corrected for electrolytes. So use a whole unrefined salt source, like a sea salt, or I really like the Redmond real salt. Redmond salt, they do a good, they have a really good salt. It has a very good content of iodine. Because a lot of people are deficient in iodine, and most of the salt is not iodized these days. But Redmond real salt naturally has a good amount of iodine in it. So use one of those, any sea salt. Himalayan salt's fine, but Himalayan salt is not really, it's not the best source. It's actually really overpriced. And there's a lot of minerals in there that are not the best. So Himalayan salt can have a lot of fluoride in it, which we want to avoid. So Himalayan salt, not the best, but it's fine. Use the rest of it. Buy a sea salt next time, or the Redmond salt. Liberal salting through adaptation or always? Good question, Jenny. Always. But you don't have to force it. You're going to find that in the adaptation period, in the first few months of ketosis, you're going to want a lot of salt, and you're going to have a taste for that salt. Or if you feel lightheaded in between meals or something, sometimes just a quarter teaspoon to a half teaspoon of salt intake can correct that and get the blood levels of sodium up so you feel good. So yeah, the Himalayan salt, the problem with that, it's all from China. They call it Himalayan because then they could say, oh yeah, look, it's from Pakistan. But it gets harvested in Pakistan using explosives. And they bring it over to China, process it there. And it's to import that to the U.S., they're importing it at about like 2 to 12 cents per pound. That's what those importers are paying. And then they sell it wholesale. The reason it's got a huge markup. That's the secret about Himalayan salt. Huge markup. People are buying this stuff for like a quarter a pound, 25 cents a pound. And then they're selling it to people for $12. Massive markup. There you go. That's a great one. Celtic sea salt's good. We like some of these salts from Mountain Rose has some good ones. They've got like a lot of artisan salts that we like. But you don't have to get super crazy and fancy. Just a basic Celtic sea salt's great. You know, Bolivia makes some decent salts. There's some good Hawaiian salts. Like I said, Redmond in Montana, that's a good salt. The Redmond real salt. So get enough salt. That's the easiest one. Next, potassium and magnesium. So if you're eating a lot of anti-nutrient foods, like if you're eating a lot of spinach, people think that they're getting a lot of potassium from that spinach, but what's crazy is, especially if you're eating it raw, a lot of these minerals are going to be being bound up by the oxalate content, by the anti-nutrient content in these foods. So what I find is, this is crazy, the more plant foods people eat, the worse, very often, their electrolyte imbalances get when they're getting adapted to a ketogenic diet. So if you're getting adapted to keto and you're getting electrolyte imbalance issues, with most of us, won't be having. Right, most of us are, if we're getting enough salt, we're not going to get electrolyte issues. But if you do start getting really lightheaded, very lethargic, very low in energy, this could be related to magnesium and potassium deficiency because you're losing that water weight and your body's not used to this new dietary pathway. You might want to look at supplementing a little bit of potassium and magnesium. So what I would recommend would be citrate minerals, potassium citrate, magnesium citrate. Having some of that on hand, if you do like a lot of saunas or something, if you sweat a lot, if you do a lot of high intensity exercise, some electrolyte supplementation might be useful, but it's not required for everybody, right? But having a little bit of potassium citrate and magnesium citrate and taking small amounts of that can be useful. Now, with potassium citrate, you're going to want to make sure that if you're supplementing with potassium citrate, You start slow. So like a quarter to an eighth teaspoon, right, or an eighth to a quarter teaspoon rather, per day, once or twice a day would be enough of potassium citrate. Magnesium citrate, you don't have to worry so much about the dosage. If you do too high dosage of potassium, it can thin the blood out. So you just got to be careful. Anytime you're supplementing anything, more is not always better. So with magnesium citrate, too much of it's going to be a laxative. So be careful. Don't want to be pooping too much. Then don't take too much magnesium citrate. So dosage of magnesium citrate, half to 1 teaspoon per day would be probably enough to correct for any mineral imbalances that are going on during adaptation. But most of us aren't going to need to buy any of that. We'll just have to eat some salt, get in enough fatty cuts of meat, fatty fish, eggs, nutrient rich animal foods, and the right types of plant foods if we're including plant foods, right? So avoiding the very high oxalate foods would be a good idea. So if you're going to eat plants, going more towards stuff like maybe spinach, avocado, um, rather than, or I'm sorry, avoiding spinach rather, and going for stuff like lettuce and avocado. Lettuce has got a lot less oxalate content than spinach. Certain types of kale have low oxalate content, um, but good news is most people don't really like eating kale, right? I mean, it's unnecessary. So yeah, we've actually we found that. I mean, our last keto and carnivore collective ended up being basically all carnivorous. We're going to put up the list for low oxalate foods right now, and we'll talk a little bit more about oxalates on Wednesday as well. But today we're trying to set up the macros, and then of course I know there's a lot of people that are at different stages of their diet. There's a lot of people who are antsy and eager to get their questions answered. So I think we're done talking about electrolytes. We've hit on the macros, and we can open up the floor now to talk about your guys' specific contexts and situations and any questions you might have. So I guess we'll start. Maybe we'll start at the bottom here. We'll start at the bottom with Johan. If you want to unmute yourself, Johan, you can ask any questions you got. Jessica just threw in the guide to low oxalate greens in there, which is really helpful. What's up, Johan?
Hey, hi. How are you guys?
Nice. Good to meet you, man. Where do you live?
I'm from Mumbai, India.
Nice. So you're what is
Yes.
how many of your friends and family are vegetarian?
I would say, dude, look, I'm born in a. I'm not from India exactly. So we happen to be part of a really like small secluded religion called Zoroastrianism, which got chucked out of the Middle East by a Muslim invasion, and then we landed up coming and setting up shop over here. So
Wow.
my community and like the religion, even though I'm not religious, but like the religion I'm born into, the culture out here is very meat based, and most of the people, like, it's anecdotal, but like, most of the community is known for having a good health and a longer lifespan, and that's a contradiction I struggled a lot with when I was a vegan. Like, I was a vegan 2 years back. So, and like, people always told me, look, like, your entire community is eating loads of meat and you're living all these, like, such long lives, and why are you doing? Understood kind of later that what we're being told with respect to like vegan propaganda and all is totally misleading. So yeah, I've already, like, the transition stuff I've experienced a year and a half back when I started my ketogenic journey,
Yep.
and I'm mainly coming here to basically learn how to do a carnivore diet correctly
Awesome.
because yeah. So I've been ketogenic for a long time, and even though it helped me like resolve a lot of my issues, but mainly to do with skin, but and it's just this last month that I've totally cut vegetables out. So you know, I was oblivious to the idea that, like, there's just this thing that vegetables are necessary and essential.
Yep.
That's this dogma that's there in everyone's head. And I started looking into some of the stuff deeper, and it turned out like it's not true. And my body agreed with that. Like, once I cut it out, my skin health and all became much better. And I'm still having some plants. So I just want to figure out how to do it correctly and
Yeah.
not mess it up.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And as far as I've got your questionnaire right here. That just fascinates me
Yeah.
that the meat eating population where you live is obviously healthier than the surrounding populations. And I've heard that about India as well, that the higher meat consuming portions actually have better health and better longevity.
Yeah, that's true. We have a diabetes rate of around, like, I think I went to one of these gut health conferences, and they gave this number of like almost 50 to 60% of the population being diabetic. Like
Wow.
chronic health situations really messed up over here, and like people's diets are largely to blame. I would surely say that.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you're looking to gain some weight too. You mentioned you might think you're a little bit underweight right now, right?
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to ask you. Is increasing the calories through fat enough, or do I need to have a cyclical approach where I'm including some clean carbs as well to
Yeah.
if I want to actually gain weight, or just increasing the fat will that do it?
All right. So increasing the fat can do it, but it's probably not going to be the easiest thing, right? I think the best thing, I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it in the context of a no carb approach, but there are carbohydrate sources that you'll be able to handle really well and that you probably won't get any negative side effects from that you can start including to basically just boost up insulin levels to try to help with that weight gain. So yeah, you
Yeah.
can do it without, but it's going to be way easier to use carbs. And I think the best carb to try, the best one to go into, would be raw milk. Can you get some raw milk?
I can get A2 raw milk as well, but I don't know if I'm actually reacting to dairy because when I tried cutting out vegetables like just this last month, and I would just try introducing cheese in, like good quality goat cheese in, and
Yeah.
I've not tried raw milk as well. I've heard that it has something which actually pre-digests the lactose and stuff, and I have a sniff for lactose
So how did you
intolerance.
feel
So
with the goat cheese? Did you feel any better? Or did you feel the same?
no, I like the scent. Like I have this peculiar thing when it comes to dairy. I've not tried raw milk. I want to give it a shot because I've seen you having it on a lot of your videos, so I'll give it a try. But this like the center part of my head becomes red like for a day after I have it, and then it goes away. So my body's become like the more I've removed the stuff, the more sensitive my body's become to like these triggers through.
Yeah, you see what
So it just
actually
helps me to
happens, right? You don't get
yeah,
exposed to
yeah.
something for a while, and then you get acute exposure, and it becomes really obvious. Yeah, with
I find
food with
myself doing good with
reintroduction.
rice and
hmm
sorry.
I was gonna say with reintroduction, if you just do small amounts, that's usually best, right? Because if you do a big bolus of something that you haven't digested in a while, no matter what it is, it's gonna feel
Mm.
weird, and you might get the wrong signal, like, oh yeah, maybe I should avoid that. When maybe if you just had, a half a cup of raw milk to start, and increase your dosage very slowly over a few weeks, and then you start having like, I think in your situation, getting all the fats and the proteins in, right? Eating, steak to satiety, eating fatty cuts of meat, focusing on nutrient density, foods like liver, maybe including some brain or something every once in a while, some of the more odd cuts, bone marrow. Everybody can do bone marrow. Brain sounds gross to most people. I understand. Don't freak out. You guys don't all have to do it. But bone marrow is really tasty. Getting those animal fats in and then adding something like 50 grams of carbohydrate a day. And if you can handle raw milk, that's usually a good one because you just drink it, right? You don't have to really make anything. You just drink the dang milk, and it's really easy to add. Another one to try would be honey. So maybe starting with a couple teaspoons of honey per day around your meal, and they'll help to digest the food as well because they have live enzymes in them. And
Honey wouldn't spike insulin though, right? Because it's almost entirely fructose.
it doesn't spike it super high, but honey is glucose and fructose. It's not almost entirely fructose. I
Okay.
think it's like 60/40. Let me check though.
Alright.
I think there's going to be different ratios depending on the type of honey as well. Um,
How often do you should be eating organ meats? Like
well, I mean that depends on the person. I mean, if you really like liver, you can have a little bit of liver every day. But if you don't care for it, I mean, once a week is fine. If you don't like it at all, some people just don't even eat it and they do great. So I think it's just going to create. I think it just is going to create. It's going to depend. Right? It's going to depend on if you like it or not. Now, Nathaniel loves liver. He loves raw liver. So for him, he might want to make sure that he doesn't just overdo it. Like some people, they eat a lot of liver and they get a little bit too much copper. You can get certain nutrient imbalances from overeating certain foods. Steak, you're never running that risk. But yeah, liver. If you like it, you could eat it every day. If you hate it, you can avoid it. It just kind of depends. But let's see. As far as carbohydrate sources, honey's a really good one for adding weight, and it's very easily digested. Raw milk usually handled by most people, but we're gonna have to just add these things in slowly and see how you do with them. And white rice. I mean, as far as like an easily digestible carb that doesn't disturb the gut very much, all these people try to do whole grains and everything, but most, the Asian populations understand that white rice is more easily digested. So, I mean, a great autoimmune diet that's not ketogenic would be meat and rice. Like for most people, they can digest those. So white rice, if it's decent quality, you want to make sure it doesn't have too much arsenic, and some of that can be a good way to boost up carb intake. But first, I would try honey. You could even white basmati rice seems to digest the best for most, says Nathaniel exactly. Um, honey, milk, a little bit of white rice. Those would be good ones to try. And you don't want to be
Yeah, I want.
you don't want to boost your calories so high to where it's uncomfortable. You just want to find a nice, healthy caloric surplus that you can maintain, and get you lifting some weights, get you getting on a consistent fitness routine. You're 22 years old. Your hormones are going to be optimized. Your hormones are going to be great. So getting consistent work in on calisthenics or lifting some weights if you can, and yeah, I think that's going to be the best approach for us. We want to get you putting on weight without getting too much body fat on, you know. But I don't think you're going to be at risk of becoming obese or anything. We just, we want to put on quality weight, right? So I'd rather take 6 months to put on 10 pounds of muscle with minimum fat than take 1 month to put on 10 pounds of fat and 1 pound of muscle.
Yeah, that's true. I want to do it sustainably. That's why I don't mind taking the time. I'll do it this.
Yeah. So let's look at as far as content of the diet. I want you to eat at least a pound to a pound and a half of meat per day. All right, so minimum 100
No,
grams.
I'm doing like 500 grams of meat every day.
Okay, let's go to
That's perfect.
let's see if we can get like 700 grams of meat in.
All right.
So that's going to be about a pound and a half. Seven.
And if you wanna I'd asked some questions earlier. Like if you wanna get to that event,
What was that? You cut out for a sec.
I'd asked some questions earlier in the QA questions section. I don't know if you read that.
Oh, cool. No, I haven't read them yet. I was just going to go through the list and talk to everybody. What were the questions? Let's answer them now.
Okay, yeah. So I'll ask you the first one. I have some concerns on the accumulation of xenobiotics in fat tissue of animals because I've studied toxification and the various pathways and how toxins are stored in the body. And when we usually put on fat, that's where the body lands up tucking most of the heavy metals and the other xenobiotics in because it wants to avoid the damage to other critical tissues and organs of the body. So if you have you looked into that? Like, what do you think of that? Is there any other information you have that challenges
These
this
toxins store
notion?
everywhere. This is the thing. Is it's like we get worried about that, then it's okay. Well, what must be good? Maybe the fruit's good. Let's eat fruit. But also, a lot of these things are water soluble. BPA is water soluble, and these xenoestrogens can stack up in fruits. We're getting all sorts of pesticide exposure from these things too. Um, Honestly, and animal fats and animal proteins are the most easily digestible and assimilable foods. I'm not so concerned with, I mean, if it's bad quality, if it's from a real crappy area and is grown in a terrible way, or harvested in a bad way, then yeah, there could be contamination. But overall, you're at less risk from eating meat than you are from any other food, as far as nutrients, anti-nutrient content, the abrasive fibers that are absent. All these things are not problems with meat. Nathaniel mentions Mercola, so I guess maybe Mercola talks about the accumulation of these toxins in animal fats. I really think a lot of this stuff is fear mongering, man. Like I'm not, I don't know where some of these things are coming from, but as far as like real world results, I think that's the most important thing, right? So we could say mechanistically it would make sense that this could happen, right? But when we look at actual
Yeah.
outcomes, I think that's the most important. So it's like if I eat animal fat and it removes this fog from my brain gave me a low level depressive state for my whole life that I thought I was going to be under forever. And then I started eating a bunch of animal fats and stopped eating carbohydrates, and I feel better, and I'm not suicidal depression, in suicidal depression anymore, which happens to a lot of people. I don't think it's going to be, it's kind of like, oh, well, maybe I should stop doing this because what if the fat I'm eating is toxic, right? It's like, I mean, there are people that are reversing serious chronic conditions, putting into complete remission with, Paleo Medicina, the Paleo Medicina group, they focus on an all animal
Yeah, I
based.
listened to that.
Yeah, you know them. So they're getting regressions in cancers from this approach. And, and they're doing pork. Like a lot of the food that their patients are eating is pork. Now, granted, they're focusing on organic, not GMO fed, crap fed pork, but it's still pork is a way lower quality fat and way more susceptible to poor fatty acid ratios. So, for instance, grass fed ground beef has a very positive and favorable and easily digestible and assimilable amino acid and fatty acid profile. Whereas pork, if they're eating a bunch of corn, the fat profile is going to look like corn, right? But even the Paleo Medicina group, they're getting great results with that with a lot of pork. So I think it's really important to look at real world results. If there's something to really be concerned about, absolutely, I would say avoid that source of food. But I don't know, animal fats just seem like the safest bet to me at this point. That's
Yeah, I've thought about it, like the disconnect that what you're saying about the results and what's showing in a lot of these studies that, and the thing that I thought of is that a lot of the plants that people are eating, they're actually going and blocking a lot of these detoxification pathways. So even if there are lesser quote unquote like xenobiotics coming from the plants, but they're going and blocking the body's natural detoxification pathways in the liver and other organs, which actually help to take them out. So that's something I thought of. But
absolutely, and
I
they
think
require different enzymes, which require different nutrients in abundance, right? So you get depleted of zinc on a high grain diet really quickly. So a high grain intake, high phytate intake diet depletes zinc. Whereas completely removing all those phytates and grains, on paper, it looks like you're eating less zinc, but your zinc levels are going to go up. Like your tissue zinc levels are going to improve. So it's a very, very nuanced thing, and that's why I think anybody interested in these concepts definitely look at Amber O'Hearn's talk. She gets a lot into some of these issues, and she fleshes out some of these major questions that intelligent people like Johan are bringing up, because these are super important questions and things that should be explored. Are we going to see studies on these anytime soon? Probably not. I mean, you're looking at like Johan's a pioneer, right? It's like people like us who are asking these questions at the ground level. We're going to have to start exploring these things deeper with each other and discussing with other experts as well. And that's kind of the goal here, is to share information with you guys from some of these experts, to do these interviews and talk to a lot of these people and whittle through all this stuff and figure out what it is that's important. What I found, the easiest foods to digest, animal foods. The best results are being gotten through high intake of those animal foods. And
Well, it's not just us. It's like with all the people that we work with.
yeah, no, I don't care about my results. It's like what's about what works for other people, right? It's like I'm not sick and dying like some of these people who are going to a carnivorous diet and completely reversing all their symptoms, right? So, I mean, I can handle a lot of these other foods and be okay. I have no desire to from just because of how good I feel eating animal foods. So yeah, Johan, that's a great question, and I wish there was a
I
perfectly clean source of all these foods that we would know is just great. There's no contamination, but I mean the whole world's contaminated physically and spiritually. There's a lot of there's a lot of contamination. Nathaniel says
I
just breathing is
appreciate that.
toxic. He says so. Yeah, that's true. The tap water is also fluoride in the tap water, chlorinated water. All these things affect our health dramatically. Um, Go ahead, Johan.
Yeah, I was saying I appreciate like a lot of the experts that you bring on and speak about these issues, but specifically on the issue of detoxification, if you want to bring on someone, I think Dr. Brian Walsh has done a lot of great work in this, and he's he's actually like he's taking apart a lot of the detoxification fads that are going on. So like foot baths and juice cleanses and all this crap, and
Yep.
he's actually put together a really like in-depth like science-based detoxification program where he's reviewed like 200 papers, and I've taken that program. So that's where I'm telling you a lot of this information about
Cool.
accumulation of toxins and fat stores are coming from. So if you want to
Yeah.
like get him on, and he's a great person to actually like ask these questions to from your perspective, like from the perspective of the carnivore diet having results. But what I was
Yeah.
saying is that I can't physically go and like buy stuff from the person who's raising my meat because I live in an urban environment. But I like at least on the label it says grass fed and hormone free and all of that.
Yeah.
So do you think it's safe to like have liver from a source like that, like where
Probably.
I
Yeah.
can't physically check?
Yeah. Try it. Try it and see what
I
your
mean
body.
raw. Sorry,
See what
I mean
happens.
raw liver. Yeah.
I mean, well, liver is always going to digest more easily raw. You're more at risk from getting food contamination from lettuce and leafy green vegetables than you are from meat. Right? Most food poisoning comes from lettuce. Over 60% of food poisoning comes from lettuce, leafy green vegetables. So, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it so much. I'd say try some. Try it and see how it feels. Just because we can't do what's best and what's optimal doesn't mean that we shouldn't explore the options that we have available.
Yep. All right, man. I won't take much time. I think my questions are answered, so I'll let other people. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, you mentioned you had another question that you had already put up in the Q&A question section. Do you remember what that one
No,
was?
I already asked you both. Like I had two mainly, and I asked you them, and the other one you already answered on like cycling ketosis. So that's great.
Yeah, yeah. In your case, let's work on pumping up the carbs a little bit. Try to get about 50 grams of carbs a day. It's not a high carb diet by any means, but let's see if we can get a little bit of raw milk. Increase that slowly. Just easy ways to get the calories up because it's not easy to eat. You know, just more fat, right? And sometimes you're just so
Yeah,
satiated,
yeah.
and if you want to gain some
You
weight,
feel nauseous after a while.
yeah. If you want to gain some weight, we want to throw some more caloric load in there and find an easy way to do it. Hey, mix up some, a cup of honey with a little bit of milk in it, right? Or, I'm sorry, a cup of milk with a little bit of honey in it, rather. um,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. Sure.
something like that. So,
Baltimore.
yeah, once a day, a little bit of carbohydrate intake. Time that maybe in the late afternoon, early evening, and that will time good with your circadian rhythm.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Johan. So Tisha, what's up, Tisha? Tisha thinks she might have been going a little bit high on the vegetables there. So here's what happens with a lot of people that are starting keto from standard American diet. They go from eating a very low fiber diet, where they're eating a lot of like white bread and processed grains and stuff like that, where it's pretty quickly digested and more easily digested than things like broccoli, cauliflower. And she did 6 ounces of broccoli, 3 ounces of or 2 ounces of cauliflower, and just feeling a little bit burpy. Yeah, if you focus on maybe reducing that veg intake a little bit, drop those veg, focus on some like fatty red meat, Tisha. Yeah, a lot of burping, no fun, no fun. Sorry to hear that, but yeah, reduce that intake of the vegetables. You don't need them, right? You don't need them at all. You might feel a lot better without them. You eat beef and liver every day. Awesome, awesome. Let's just back off the veggies. See if you feel a little bit better with that. Fatty meat. Cool, Tisha. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute if you want to jump in and talk. Some people are at work or out on the road and stuff. All right. So what about Nathaniel? What's up, dude?
Hey, buddy.
Nice to meet you, man.
I just thought it'd be a fun. Yeah, you too, man. I actually, when I found you on YouTube just in the last like few months, I was like, this guy looks so familiar. And then I realized you were hanging out with Matt in Ecuador, and got all up in that train too, and was obsessed with all that stuff.
Did you ever come to Ecuador?
Similar journey in that sense. No, never went to Ecuador, but basically just worshipped Matt and all the videos and
Oh, that's funny.
uh,
Dude,
living off
Matt's
different.
like he's eating meat now again. He hasn't talked about this
Thank God.
He hasn't even talked about this publicly. He almost died, dude. That guy almost raw fooded
Yeah.
himself into the grave. Like he actually legit went to a doctor and they said his heart had stopped, and there was like water all around it. And they revived him, and
Oh gosh.
we're just like, you need to eat some eggs or something, guy.
Yeah,
Everybody
I
was
live
telling
here in
him.
Ojai, where they had their fulfillment center for a while, and I actually met him, gosh, almost maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Park, and I walked up to him just to say, I just wanted to say thank you because like he really opened me up like going raw vegan was what allowed me to start giving a shit about my health in the first place.
Yeah.
Even though it clearly wasn't the right strategy.
Right, it got your
me, like,
attention.
curious.
It got your
Yeah, it got me
attention.
curious
Yeah.
about food quality and all these different things. Just wanted to say thank you. And he was so not there.
Yeah.
Like I cried afterwards. It was so traumatic for me to like walk up to an idol at one point who literally looked like he was dying.
Zonked.
It just totally like kind of messed me up for a moment. I was like, man, what a bummer. And at that point I was eating a lot better. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that I got out of that. But anyways, it's cool to see, I really love like the mindset you're actually bringing into all of this, and staying super and not too judgmental, even though it's pretty easy to kind of make fun of people when we open up to this stuff, because it's just kind of like, because it's like we're making fun of ourselves, who we used to be and how ridiculous it was.
Well, yeah, that's
how
the thing, is
brainwashed
it's like
we were
so
and all
many
these
of my
things.
friends are, I mean, you know, people talk about Matt being like, I mean, people make comments all the time, and I was never really super close friends with Matt or anything, but I know him well, right? But it's just, man, seeing that guy's journey and seeing how much he got ripped up by his dietary dogma. And I've seen a lot of other vegans around that have also gone through similar paths, gone down a similar path as he did, but none of them to the extent that he did. And his is shocking.
Yeah.
Dude, if you saw him today, you'd
Well,
like,
it's intense when he had to uphold that image for a while to make his business keep running too. Where that can get super intimidating, where it's like when all you're selling is raw vegan products.
he had
It's
to be
actually
raw
not
vegan.
ideal,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
He had to do it. If he wasn't, he would have left raw veganism 20 years ago if he didn't have a business that was about it.
Yeah.
And that's the saddest
So
part.
I wanted to ask one question that I just thought would be fun, and then also just share for. I think it looks like I'm maybe, you know, for lack of a better way of saying it, like a little further ahead, keto and to carnivore and stuff too, than some of the people joining. I just want to like really congratulate everyone for like going against the grain, no pun intended, and like really opening up to this, because it's like it's a big deal, and it's been trippy for me because I have this like 5% part of my brain that's still vegan, you know, from like the way how deeply I kind of brainwashed myself. And just like the more that you keep watching the videos and watching stuff, and I follow all these carnivore things on Instagram now, so my feed just filled with all this delicious meat and stuff, and it's like helping me realize how freaking normal and natural all of this is. And it's just like, it really, a lot of it is psychological, you know, when it comes to like thinking we need all these vegetables and salads are the healthiest thing you could possibly eat and all this stuff, when literally every time I eat a salad now, which I haven't in a few months, but when I did, it was just like, I just felt so silly. I'm like, why do I keep doing this?
Yeah.
And it's like this mental journey of getting over.
Our great grandparents would laugh at like vegetables are the most essential health foods in the world.
Yeah,
They would just laugh. They'd say like, yeah, right. We need milk and eggs and meat. What are you talking about? This is, I mean, it's just, it's so intuitive. When you've stripped it down to when you stripped it down like you did, raw vegan, then you realize how important meat is. That's what I think is so fast. Nobody knows how important meat is more than Matt Monarch does right now. And please don't tell don't tell anybody I told you, because this is like, you know, private group or whatever, and I don't think Matt's talked about publicly like eating meat or anything. But he it took him so long. His like life fell apart. His business is long fallen apart, and it's just the last thing to go was the self idolatry type thing. It's sad. It's really sad to see somebody lose his family, his like everything, you know. But you know, we can do that through just being so stubborn. It was freaky. Sorry to keep going in on Matt, because I just haven't thought about him in a while, and somebody told me that they saw him the other day, and he was just so skinny. I mean, he got down to like 80 pounds before he finally decided that he wanted to live again.
Oh, that's intense.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I know Tisha, there's some people in here who might need some more support or questions answered. Question I just thought was kind of fun. I'm curious, like, what's you and Jessica's kind of like most enjoyable, like mouth-watering meal lately?
Every meal,
Super
you know
loving
what's so
these days.
crazy? Every meal is that meal. It's so strange.
Yeah, that's true.
And they all are like the same. That's so if somebody I don't know, some people might think it looks boring, but to me, I never get tired of a big ribeye steak cooked in a cast iron skillet, seared on one side with a pretty good sear on one side, the other side barely touched, and basically raw in the middle. So I pull it out of the fridge at the last minute, and I just sear one side to get that nice crust on one side, other side barely touched, and then I have a slab of suet, of sheep suet, which sheep fat is sweet and it's soft and it kind of melts in your mouth, and I'm a huge fan of sheep suet. So I'll have heated up a little piece of sheep suet on the side and either bone marrow or butter, and sometimes bone marrow and butter. So if I have all those things, like some sheep suet, some butter, and some bone marrow, I'll have all of those on the side of a steak, and that's a meal for me. And I can do that one time a day and be satiated, or I can do it 2 times a day if I'm trying to push my calories up a little higher to gain some weight.
Nice.
And that's it for me, man. That's what I know will always satiate is fatty meat and some other various fats. Sometimes a little bit of high liver before the meal, which is mouth-watering rotten liver. For everybody doesn't know. Now that's an extreme one that a lot of people are not ready for, but it's like the cheese of animal foods. It's you know, imagine a Gruyere cheese that's been aged for a few years, just so funky, so good. It got this almost spiciness to it because of the live bacteria. Some of them taste really sweet, like depending on conditions and the animal you're getting it from. But I really like fermented liver, like 3-month-old aged in a jar. And I have that at the beginning of the meal, and it's like a digestive tonic. And what about you, Jessica? You're like Burger Queen.
Burger Queen. I usually have a split of breakfast and lunch, and sometimes I do 2 steaks a day. Sometimes I'll do burgers, and I cook them on a cast iron with tallow, and I do it so they're really crunchy on the outside, but then still kind of raw pink, blue rare on the inside. And it's usually something like cooking that first side of the burger for a few minutes on really hot temperature and then flipping it and just searing the second side so it's closed up. So very similar to how we cook steaks. And with the burgers, it just makes it really crunchy. And then I'll put butter on top of that. It's amazing. It's really amazing. And the kids all get down on that. They love cheeseburgers. So sometimes for them, I'll take a slice of cheese and melt that on top and serve it with a side of steamed vegetables for them if they're feeling it, or just do the burger by itself. And then I'll have a ribeye for lunch. And
Love it.
I've spent years in the kitchen, and I mean, I grew up thinking I wanted to move to France and be a baker because I thought that world was so cool, and I never ever would have thought that I could do such a similar meal day in and day out and really enjoy it, but I truly, truly do. Oh, I'll add I also like raw liver, and then I get into the high liver too.
Nice. I'm excited to try all the fermented organ stuff.
Yeah.
Seems super intense, but it's like my body's so sensitive at this point where it's like whatever like kind of objectively obvious that's super bioavailable and full of nutrients, like my body just wants it.
Yeah, no, you're the kind of guy that I love giving high meat to because you feel what's going on, right? I mean, I've gotten a lot of people to try it who just eat a varied diet, and they still think it's pretty amazing. Yeah. Like they're like, wow, that's really cool, that's different, and they feel it. But it's people who are, very sensitive to what they eat, especially people who've like refined their diet a lot. It's always amazing to see them try it because it's so different. Like there's no other food like it. And, just like a good cheese there's nothing like it, right? It's very different. And there are neurotransmitters that are made from bacteria. And, a lot of really important minerals and bacteria a lot of very important minerals and vitamins are created by bacteria. B vitamins as well. So, just like a really good cheese can be really funky and almost be, I don't know, just like you pucker when you try it. It's just so weird, but you want more. That's how high meat is. It's just funky.
Do you have any a resource on preparing that? I know it's pretty much just kind of like put it in a jar and leave it, but if there's any particular
Well,
strategy to
it's
that?
so easy. Yeah. So Nathaniel and anybody else who's crazy enough to try it, liver's my favorite one. Just take raw liver, make sure it's pretty clean, fresh. Get a jar, big one or small one, and start cutting it up into small pieces, however big of bites you want. Usually the smaller pieces are better because it's so intense. The flavor's so intense. When you start out with small bites because you're eating rotten liver, and mentally you're like, am I gonna die or not? And maybe I'll have a very small bite first. So take it, cut it up, put it into a jar, fill the jar about halfway, and then open that jar like every day or every other day. Just open it up, let some air in, maybe shake it, move it around. Eventually, you might notice that a lot of liquid separates out. You can drain that out, give it to the dogs or something. And some people don't even drain it, but if you drain it, it tends to ferment quicker because it'll be exposed to more oxygen, right? So then you just kind of open it up, shake it every once in a while. 3 months later, you're going to open it and think, all right, this maybe looks, I don't know, you smell it every day. You're going to smell how it starts to change, and eventually you're going to say, I'm ready to try this. And you'll take a bite. Whether that be 1 month or 3 months, the longer the better usually for the ferment. If you leave it 3 months, it's going to taste better. And yeah, do the smell test, and your body will tell you when you're ready.
Awesome. Thank you. Super stoked to try.
Yeah, man, we're stoked to have you.
I'm going to mute myself now. My keto carny girlfriend just brought me some eggs and ground beef.
There you go.
So
There you go.
I'm gonna keep eating and let you take care of everybody else. Thanks, guys.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. What a good dude. Nathaniel, we're glad to have you here, man. Already so enthusiastic and helpful for everybody. Suggesting the live chat channel, which I don't know, like after like a whole year of doing this, why we haven't done that. We usually just all go to the main chat.
Yeah, actually, I've been a coach for 10 years, so I have
Yeah.
all kinds of different strategies and feedback, and happy to continue to support whatever way really
Awesome,
serves you
man.
guys.
Awesome, brother.
This is
Well,
important stuff.
we're glad to have you here, man. Thanks for hanging. So, Katrin, how do we say your name?
Katrin.
Katrin. All right, Katrin. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
All right,
Nice to meet y'all.
Nice to meet you. What brings you here?
I used to be a ballerina at one point. Really, I've never been to doctors, nothing. Had a horrifying injury a couple years ago, and tore both my Achilles tendons. And so I find myself in an emergency room with all these doctors, and they're giving me, cortisone shot stuff, and end up on antibiotics, and it changed everything about me. I gained 100 pounds immediately. Like it was like almost an overnight thing. The doctors were telling me, you're not going to walk normally again, or if at all, unless you get these surgeries. And even then, we can't guarantee anything. And I just decided, no, there's got to be a better way. So in January, I went to a vegan diet just to, I had to start somewhere. And I thought, okay, well, vegans are in our ears a lot. So
Yeah.
I went to that, and it took away my sugar addiction. It took away my need for processed foods. So I'll
Nice.
hand it to vegan for that. It made me grateful for what was on my plate. Like vegan food, it's really pretty. It's
Yeah.
pretty.
It's really pretty.
Yeah, and without knowing anything about oxalates, it's so funny because one day I'm making my 7 cups of vegetables or whatever it is. It's ridiculous amount of vegetables. And I had my baby spinach, my raw baby spinach, and I went to put it in my mouth, and it was like this overall sense of dread. And I kid you not, my body, everything in my head said, "This is like poison. Don't eat this anymore." It was that intense.
Wow. And then what?
Yeah.
Then what happened?
And, so I started just weeding out all the vegetables. I just kind of came down to a couple. I think I had like cucumbers and some zucchini and some mushrooms, but that was about it. And then started moving to keto. I lost 50 pounds in 3 months. And that was, I think most of that is from intermittent fasting and then moving. And then
Hold on, Katrin. You broke up. You said, I think most of that was due to intermittent fasting. And what else were you doing?
now I'm OMAD.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So vegan led to keto, which then now I'm moving into carnivore, and it's feeling much better. It's feeling like all the inflammation is starting to leave my body. The injuries are healing. I'm walking 5 to 8 miles a day. I'm trying to train to do a 12-mile ruck march
Yeah.
in June. So I'm trying to lose more weight. I'm trying to lose another 50.
Okay.
Just to see where I end up physically. Answers are always underweight. I don't want to be underweight, but I don't know how I'll right now. I'm just really appreciative. Citizen scientist, yeah, uh, just to figure all of this out because the doctors aren't doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a little bit of interference there at the end, but I got most of the
Yeah,
story clear.
I don't know what the deal is. We're cutting in and out, so I'm trying. Yeah, I don't know.
It's okay. No, I got it. I got most of the story. The last couple sentences kind of cut off a little bit, but yeah, what a wild ride. I mean, you've already made such good progress. What was your highest weight that you were at when you were at your heaviest?
I think it was 290. So it was pretty crazy. I think I'm at 173 now.
So you've lost over 100 pounds. You said 290? Is that what it was?
219.
Oh, 219.
No,
Okay.
219.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So yeah, so it's crazy. You angry that you get a lot of lies told by people who have a duty to know better.
Yeah, well, I mean,
just
it's
don't.
institutionally they're kind of stuck institutionally and with the blinders on, unfortunately. It's not like these
Well,
people.
you're being more gracious. You're being more gracious than I.
Some of them are a pain in the ass, and
It's
some of them are full of pride, and some of them are so arrogant that it's so easy to get pissed, right? It's just like, there's some of the things, the bad advice that these people give was such hubris, and if you dare question it, then oh, you must be some sort of an invalid. How can you question my authority when they're clearly wrong? Yeah, it gets annoying, but we're all human and we all screw up, right? How cool is it though that what you've found, you've found what works, right? And you've gone the vegan route. You realize how much you need meat, and so you've experienced both extremes of the restriction of meat, the restriction of those foods, and you've experienced the medical extreme of having yourself gain tons of weight in an almost inexplicable way, where it goes way beyond just, oh, you ate too much food, you had too many calories, fatty. It's like it's not so simple as that for everybody. These antibiotics that can just wreck our health. You realize how much the gut can change and how much that affects inflammation levels and weight gain. So, you're going to help a lot of people. You're in a position to where you can actually transfer a lot of this knowledge to people around you and other people that are suffering. So, I'm so happy that you're here and that you found this.
Thank you. And that's the goal. And I had never dieted really in my life. We didn't have to. And so before vegan, I will just say that I had tried one of those, I think it was Jenny Craig or something like that. It was one of the ones on TV and you get all that. And I gained 20 pounds and I was never so sick. And that's when I didn't get it. And so then I put myself in the gym for 5 hours at a time and restricted my calories down to nothing. And I gained even more weight. So none of the metrics that, it's calories out and all calories created, it's all garbage. It's just not true.
Right. Well, it's funny though, because some people take it, they'll say, all right, well, calories don't matter. Therefore, how much food you eat doesn't matter. Right. But that's like, obviously that's a false statement. Right. But also saying that it's just calories. All that matters is calories is one of the most ridiculous things you could ever say. So it's not, there's so much nuance, right? It's like not every calorie is the freaking same. Right, 1,000 calories from cake is totally different than 1,000 calories from steak. And if you're gonna say that that's the same damn thing, you're so misinformed, right? So these people, they give such poor information.
Take your sports car, put in a gallon of diesel or a gallon of high performance fuel. You tell me how.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, well put. You know, and it's if you have a higher compression engine and you put in the low octane fuel, you're gonna bust that thing up. Um, so there's a lot of really annoying information out there, and a lot of people who are just so attached to pumping stuff out, and a lot of them really do believe it themselves, and some of them are just a lot of them are dumb enough to believe their own bullshit. But I'm glad you're at where you're at. I think what have you been eating every day? What are your meals looking like right now?
Well, they evolved into, I don't think I'm eating enough. I'm probably about 650, 700 calories most days, and I'm trying to get that up a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it's I'm trying. The protein now is usually in the 70, maybe 72 grams. Um, I been do like a lot of sauerkraut just because I had in my head this worry about having zero. Um, I've just dropped out. Now it's just getting the macros, calories,
Yeah.
you know, just all the fine tune so that I can lose this next bunch.
Yeah. So what I want to do, I want to try to get your metabolism up, right? So you mentioned the super low calorie extended periods, OMAD, stuff like that. Um, when you've got a lot of weight to lose, the body can be kind of forgiving with that stuff. But if you got a high stress lifestyle, if you've got a lot of workload, if you're not sleeping very well, sometimes the OMAD can be a little bit harsh. Um,
Yeah, OMAD has been really good for me, and I have like zero stress, and I work. I'm around. It does work for me. Like I'm
cool.
never hungry outside. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's just fine tuning that meal.
Yeah. Yeah, what I want to do is I want to increase the protein a little bit, and let's get you at about 75 to 90 grams of protein per day and about 120 grams of fat. I think that's where we need
Yeah,
to
that
be.
120
Sorry, you broke up there.
20 grams of fat is terrifying to me.
Yeah, that's the thing. So long term, you got to get used to eating fat. It's not that much. So 75 to 90 protein, 120. Let's say 100 to 120 fat to start, right? We'll get you up there slow. We don't need to jump it and just slam it in. But we don't. Also, you're looking for weight loss, right? You want fat loss. Here's the thing about increasing calories. You increase the calories, it might give you more energy and give you better recovery, right? So you got recovering joints, collagen, connective tissue. You might even want to, in your case, it might be good to add a little bit of collagen to the diet. I'm not so huge
I
on.
have.
Cool.
I have that in my coffee, and I do have coffee in the morning.
That's fine.
And I do add that. I had a powdered collagen
Yeah. So make sure to
coffee.
keep that collagen in there. That's a great idea. Yeah, I'd say. I mean, the something that I think could be interesting would be splitting the meal into two and having breakfast and dinner and fasting in between those meals. That could be interesting because it would be kind of stoking the metabolism in the morning, giving you some protein. So you got some energy from fat and some protein. That might give you more energy to recover. And because you're getting that bolus of protein twice a day, it might improve your recovery. That's not guaranteed, but that
So,
could be interesting to try later down the line. If you don't want to switch from OMAD, it's fine, but just keep that in mind that you might also feel good morning and evening meal instead of one.
okay, so like how late then for the evening meal?
I don't know. You probably want to have it around, eat it before 8 o'clock in the evening, if you can.
Okay, all right, I'll try.
So morning and evening meal could be great, and that would just be about 45 grams of protein and 50 to 60 fat with each meal. And you might find that you have more energy in the
Good.
day and that you recover better. So if you have more energy, train the walking some more, right? But don't beat yourself up. Don't be the lady who, we all do this when we come out of injuries. We push too hard too fast. Don't do that.
Right.
Go easy on it. It's not like when we're 12 years old, 13 years old, and we sprain our ankle, and it's just like, yeah, whatever, my ankle's sprained. I'll be out for a week. I'm back in a week. It's not like that anymore. We can mess ourselves up if we go too hard. So, just ease into it. food choices. Let's see, like as far as fat sources, a little bit of butter or an animal fat. Sheep suet. You could probably get good sheep suet in Texas. Um,
Yes.
get some sheep suet. That's good stuff. Have some of that with the
But
meals.
I've been sourcing through U.S. Wellness Meats, and then I've just found some local ranches.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, it's cool. Now, it's awesome because once you start sourcing meat from stuff like that, from places like that, you make other connections and you end up in a couple years, you've got like this whole address book full of awesome people that you can get meat from, especially if you're in Texas or Montana or something.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I got a lot of family from Texas, so I love the Texans. My dad grew up in Texas. He grew up in Galveston, and
It's a great state.
yeah, yeah, I love Texans. Good folks. Well, really nice meeting you, Katrin. Let's keep pecking away at this. Let's keep refining this and dial everything in so that your foundation is solid, and you'll be at your 125 goal in no time.
Thank you very much.
All right. Hey Jenny, how's it going?
Hi, good. Yeah, I know that's my username. I usually go by Jen or Jennifer.
All right,
So
Jen. I'll call you Jen.
either way, that's fine. That's fine. Great to be here. I've been following you guys for a couple of years on and off. I grew up with my mom. She used to think it was better if you ate more. I was lucky that I really wasn't heavy growing up, but I also wasn't that active. And it hit me when I went away to college and I started drinking and eating late at night. And, excuse me one second.
Yeah.
I started, and I gained probably 30 pounds. And, I got out of college. I started working. I was working late nights and, just working lots of hours, and I just continued gaining. I met my husband. My husband's family's from India. They're much more conscientious of eating and not overindulging. Learned a lot from his family, making homemade yogurts and things like that.
Nice.
So I lost all the weight before we got married, and I pretty much maintained it. But when, I have 3 kids, after my first child, I started going to this like holistic spa, and I learned a lot from this woman that I would go meet there. She used to basically, I used to get serviced with her, and she was an ex nurse, and she decided to get out of the medical profession because she was sick of seeing what was going on. I learned a lot from her, and she turned me on to this doctor. So, I ended up going to him. He told me I had candida. I went on a candida diet, sugar-free, and that's when I started really noticing the differences that food made in my skin and my weight. And, through the years, that's going back 15 years now, like I'm definitely much more in tune with what I eat. And I thought I had broken out of the mold of, not paying attention to the pyramid diet and understanding more by doing Whole30 and things like that. But this whole carnivore thing sort of blows my mind. I'm not really there yet, but I'm open to learning about it. Because I still am more of the mindset that, veggies are good for me. But I do realize, like, especially when I did Whole30, I realized, I also have ulcerative proctitis, which is a mild form of colitis that I got probably from having too much antibiotic in my life, and which I think caused, my whole candida situation.
Yeah.
So, I've definitely noticed that cutting out certain foods helps my inflammation in my body. My whole problem is, like, I read all about this stuff. I love it. If I had to go back and have a career all over again, I probably would be interested in doing this. But my whole problem is just consistency and sustainability and just actually applying this to my everyday life. And that's where I fall short of it.
Right
it's
on.
just,
Right on.
just keeping up with it because, I'm just tired of being, overweight by X number, not feeling 100%. And I just want to be able to find something, like I know how it makes me feel, but yet I'll fall off. I'll find myself, just snacking on sugary things. I like to have a drink every now and again, things of that nature, whatever it is. But I feel, I do like to exercise. And again, there's my consistency problem with not exercising enough. But sometimes I say to myself, like, what I do eat now, like how often I eat, what I do eat, like I don't think matches up with my weight gain. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. But I do know that a calorie isn't just a calorie and it's what you're putting in your body. And I get that. I just realize that as I'm getting older, I feel like my metabolism like shutting down and I feel like my body is changing
Yeah.
and I need to do something to get it going.
Right on. Right on. Well, we're here to help. We're here to help you create the foundation. So it is nothing complicated. It's really actually simple, the approach that we teach, and that's you eat the most nutrient dense, high vitamin, high mineral foods that you can get, and those are animal foods. It's the most digestible and assimilable form of all the nutrients we need are available in animal foods. So whether you're eating plants or not, the base of the diet, the majority of the diet's got to be something that you can easily digest, that you can easily assimilate. And the best, most easily digestible foods are animal foods. So I
Yeah.
sent you a link
And
just
I
now.
am a meat eater. Like I am a meat eater. It's not like I've
Yeah.
never been a vegan or anything like that. I've just, again, my mind is just always to make sure you incorporate that. Vegetables are what's high in fiber, and that's what you
Right.
need, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, but what
I
we
did
got to
have a couple of,
understand, we got to understand that
yeah,
not all vegetables are created equal. There are a lot of anti-nutrients in many of these vegetables that can be pretty detrimental. So going more towards animal-based nutrition and understanding the plants as non-necessary elements in the diet, that's kind of what I want to focus on with you this month. So focus on getting in the meats, getting in the steaks. If you eat the steaks, you're not going to care about the cakes. You mentioned a lot of going to the sweet foods as an automatic comfort food and stuff like that. That it is so common now, and we use food as a drug. So essentially, and it's way easier said than done, right? But it's not as hard to do as you might think. We need to switch food from being entertainment, from being, something that is there as entertainment, to just being nourishment. And what's cool is the most nourishing and delicious food are the rich animal foods that everybody really likes. So you're not going to miss the sweets after you stick to this for a few months. It's not going to be something that you miss at all, especially since you've got major digestive disturbances from a lot of these. You have a lot of dietary triggers that could be possibly exacerbating the negative effects that you're getting in your gut. So I sent you a
yes,
link.
yeah.
I sent you a link, and
Okay.
there's just a few testimonials on there. These are just a few of many people who have helped ulcerative colitis, and there's even a Crohn's. There's several people with Crohn's testimonials here as well. But it is pretty amazing the results people get for ulcerative colitis and Crohn's with a carnivore approach. So yeah, check out the link I just sent you right there. That's an interesting one. There's a few really good testimonials in there, and then we're all going to be learning together this month. So we're here to
Yeah,
support
no,
you.
I
We're here
look
to
forward to it. I look
yeah.
forward to it.
We're,
I do have a couple of just specific questions. I didn't hear anything about exercise. Like when I'm going through adaptation, like is there any restrictions on exercise
no.
or any particular exercise that's better than others? Like I generally like more cardio. Like I like kickboxing, or I have a Peloton, or go biking.
Yeah. Salt is your friend. So as you're doing a low carb diet, you want to do a ketogenic low carb diet, you got to eat enough salt. So make sure to have a little bit of salt before these workouts. That'll help to volumize the blood and kind of give you that blood volume you need to do the high intensity workouts. You might want to look at a little bit of supplementation with electrolytes like potassium citrate and magnesium citrate. So maybe a quarter teaspoon a day of potassium citrate broken up into 2 or 3 doses. So
Okay.
an eighth a teaspoon 2 times a day, and a half a teaspoon 1 to 2 times a day of magnesium citrate, just to get the electrolyte levels up. Because if you're doing a lot of sweating while you're getting adapted to it, you want to make sure that you've got those electrolytes balanced out. So let's get the electrolytes in. Um, you don't have to change the way you're working out. You don't have to change the way you exercise at all. You just might feel that the first week or two, you're a little bit slower, but then your body's going to
Okay.
catch up, right? So don't beat yourself up if you go in there and you're not feeling it that day. If you want to skip it, feel free to skip it. It's not like you're going to miss out too much, but it takes a couple weeks to get adapted. But I think for the specific profile you've got, your body type, your history, you're going to adapt pretty quickly. Like you're probably going to feel really good after 5 days.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. I also would like to know. So let's take a look at Jessica's list that she's in sources. Like, are like olives in there at all, or you are not
Olives are
sure
fine.
anything
Olives are the thing with
like
olives is
that?
they're pretty high in oxalate. That's one of the issues with olives. That they've got some anti-nutrient
Okay,
content.
I'm not familiar with oxalate. I know it's brought up a lot,
All right, so
so definitely.
I'm gonna send you a link right here too. Jessica, will you post it? The Sally
Okay.
Norton, the talk I did with her the other day. So there's a few videos for everybody to watch or listen to this week. We've got an oxalate lesson with Sally K. Norton. I think that's going to come in handy for a lot of people. Johan was very interested in the oxalate issue as well. Um, then there is the talk from Amber O'Hearn about RDAs and anti-nutrients from the
Yeah.
the Carnivore Conference. And then what else was there? There was one more link. And then there's the HPO podcast about protein in case anybody's interested in that. So I highly suggest that you definitely check out the oxalate episode. I think you'd really be interested in that.
Okay. Okay. We'll do.
Okay, Jenny.
We'll do.
Got any other questions?
Uh, Alcohol. Does that play? Is that like no part in this at all, or is it?
All right. So, well, for fat loss and inflammation, alcohol obviously not our best friend, right? If you're gonna drink when you're on a low carbohydrate,
Yeah.
ketogenic, or carnivore diet, stick to the liquors, right? Stick to the things that are not sugary, that don't have a bunch of added sugars and stuff. Light beer, like light beer, can be pretty low in carbs, but for the most part, stay away from beer. Red wine's fine, but I
I'm
mean,
not a beer drinker. Like I was just stuck with vodka, so
yeah.
the coladas and all that, and I figured that was good. I mean, obviously, like at the beginning, on this, but I just wanted to know sort of where it placed,
So
and because like I said, yeah.
cool. We're breaking up a little bit. Sorry, we're having some interference, but I think it's better now. You're gonna notice that one drink has the effects of 2 to 3 drinks when you're on a keto diet. So just go slow.
Okay. What? I think that was. I think that was on a focus on measuring a feel.
We broke up a little bit there. Can you ask again?
I'm sorry. Do you focus on like weighing in and measuring, or is it all about knowing that
Yeah.
you're adapted and you're
In the beginning, we're trying to get adapted, right? So in the beginning, get enough protein. So in the beginning, we want to make sure we have sufficient protein. So for you, I'd say you're probably going to want to be at about 75 to 90 grams of protein as well, and at least 120 protein. So yeah, let's go for that. Let's go for 90 grams protein, 120 grams of fat. Sorry, I think I messed up the first time. 90 grams protein, 120 grams of fat for you. That should be good.
okay.
And then that's the start. We'll see how your energy levels are at that. That should get you some decent fat loss without being too hungry.
So are you concerned? But no, I'm just trying to still find places where I can source really good meat. Those near me, or Whole Foods where I'll get like all organic meat. A grass fed. Honestly, I did not know if it was just the quality of it but I'm trying to find good places I can source it from.
Yeah. Well, U.S.
I mean, I know you
Wellness,
talked
U.S. Wellness is pretty good.
Okay.
U.S. Wellness.
are.
Jessica, you want to throw her a link for U.S. Wellness, and check out they got an online store and they'll deliver to your door. They're pretty good.
Okay.
But also, sometimes if you look for who's competing with Whole Foods in your area, you'll find like there's some good shops. You can just look up butchers in your area and you can contact them and ask them, like if they have access to, grass fed, if they have grass fed beef, because there might be quite a few butchers in your area that you just haven't found yet.
Yeah, that might. How do do you feel about fish though?
Great, fish is
Toxins in
fantastic.
the ocean now.
All right. So a lot of
Any
people.
toxins?
Mhm.
Yeah, I get concerned with that.
A lot of people are concerned with toxins in the ocean, Fukushima, stuff like that. Well, I don't know. If you're super concerned with it, I guess you don't want to be eating something and thinking that it's toxic ever, right? You know what? Nothing you eat should you in any way feel conflicted about, or you're not going to digest it properly. It's just, we can trick ourselves into poor health from telling ourselves that what we're eating is bad. If you're not comfortable with it, it's best to avoid it. But I'm not as worried as so many people are about toxicity and seafoods. When you look at health outcomes and all these populations that do eat a lot of seafood, including Japan, we're not seeing people keeling off from these things. Yes, there is some mercury contamination in some fish. If you go for the smaller fish, you're less likely to get that contamination. But it's also, there are people who make a decent argument for that form of mercury that gets caught in fish being handled much differently in the body than other forms. So this is not something that I'm an expert on. I eat fish. I don't eat it every day, all day, but I eat fish and I don't worry about it. My kids love it, and we eat it. So it's it's, if you feel conflicted about it, maybe do some more research or avoid it if you're freaked out about it. But I think it's absolutely fine, and I think fish is great. But of course, you don't want to eat catfish from an area where there's a riverbed that they're mining gold using mercury right upstream, and there's mercury contamination. So yeah, sourcing it can be important. But we eat swordfish. We like sardines. We eat all these things. Octopus, squid. Like, I like seafood. Shellfish is great. Smaller fish that are not huge and swimming around hunting smaller fish, those usually tend to have a little bit less contamination of mercury. So yeah, hope that helps, Jenny. Really nice meeting you. Glad you could make it. Are you back? Can you hear me? It's all good. All right, Jenny. So let us know if you need anything. Let's get you getting sufficient protein, sufficient fat, and keep the carbs low. And yeah, you don't have to worry about the types of workouts. You're probably going to feel fine. I'd say after 3 to 5 days, you're going to feel on track. You're going to feel good. So nice to meet you, Jenny. Looking forward to seeing your progress. Now let's move on to Emma. What's up, Emma?
Hello.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Hey. How are you?
So good. Great to hear your voice. Love the accent.
Oh, do you remember? We probably don't because you speak to so many people, but we spoke in 2017.
Okay.
Briefly about. We've spoken alive, but I emailed you about uterine fibroids. Does that ring any bells?
Do you remember that, Jessica? Was it uterine fibroids? No, I don't. I don't remember. I think I would remember that. It sounds so familiar. I'm so sorry. I don't want to lie. I'm not going to lie and say I do, but I don't remember it. I'm sorry, Emma.
Oh, no, that's fine. You probably get shed loads of emails. It's fine. Okay, so I started the ketogenic way of eating in 2017. I did it for about 9 months. I lost track of... I basically got a bit bogged down with the whole spiritual thing, and you're not supposed to eat meat if you're spiritual and all this crap. So I was kind of going for the vegetarian keto, and I ended up having achy muscles and diarrhea. So I ended up going back to normally. So, but my main reason for doing the keto was to shrink my uterine fibroids.
Yeah.
Which, although it didn't shrink it at the time, it stopped it from growing, which was amazing.
Yeah.
So in the interim, I've literally just been eating crap, and it's got worse and worse and worse. And I've suddenly come to this point where I've been seeing your YouTube videos keep coming up, and you're all constantly on Instagram. So I'm like, this is a message that I need to be getting on the keto carnivore diet again. So I'm just kicking myself up the butt, really. I have to do it.
All right.
And I know that obviously estrogen plays a massive role in the production of the fibroids. So really, I'm looking to balance my estrogen out. So, and in the process, if I'm going to do it properly, then in theory, my fibroids should shrink.
Well, let's see what happens in practice. Right? In theory, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. So you're gonna have to stick with. Look, if you want them to stay shrunk, you've realized that you've got to find a long-term habit. You got to create the
Yes.
long-term habits and curate those habits to stick with those habits, because you saw what happens when you went off, right? And
Yeah.
you know what's cool? You're gonna feel so good, and especially since you've gotten over that mental hump of, oh, it's not spiritual to eat meat and all that nonsense that we get fooled into sometimes. You've gotten past that, so now you're ready. Now you're ready to really give it a try. And I'm glad.
Definitely.
I'm glad we can connect again. And sorry you had to go through the cycle, but I mean, I bet you learned a lot about yourself in the last couple of
No,
years,
I'm
right?
grateful for all of the stuff that I've been through with the trying to be vegetarian, and it never really sat very well. And then trying vegan food, and never really felt better for that. But meat, I love meat, and the whole realization that I only have to eat meat, and it's the most simple thing. I'm not a fan of cooking and making loads of fancy meals. I just would rather eat, get it out of the way, and I've got to the point where I'm not giving a shit what other people think now. I don't need to be in your societal conditioning anymore, so just leave me alone.
But
Oh,
Emma, you do understand that to be really spiritual, you have to appear a certain way before other people, right? That's like the whole thing about spirituality. It's all about appearances, isn't it?
no, it's about being true to myself.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So I'm really happy for where you're at. You're doing great. Like let's get on this. So focus on the fatty meats. Let's make sure you're getting. Let me see. You've got your stats right here. Um, let's see. Oh, you give your weight
So
in
I want to be
stones. You're doing
126.
this. You're doing this stone stuff to me, aren't you? You Brits. All right. How many stones? How many pounds? How many stones in a pound?
Okay, so I've written it down.
Okay.
So I want to be 126.
Yeah.
So I think I'm 179. So I need to lose 44 pounds.
There we go. Okay. So let's make sure that you're intaking at least. Let's go for about 100 grams of protein.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, right. Sounds nice. And because you're doing carnivore, we're going to skew to higher. So let's go to 100 up to 120, if you want that.
Sorry, 100 what?
100 up to 120 grams of protein per day, and about
Yeah.
the same in fat. Let's get about 120 fat. So
Okay.
100 to 120 protein and about 120 fat to start out, and we'll see how you feel with that.
Excellent. That's good.
And eventually, so check it out. Once you get to your goal weight, you're going to want to have more fat. So when you get to your goal weight, you might find that you're doing like, I don't know, you might end up at 100 grams protein, 100 grams of fat. You get to your goal weight, you're solid, you're there. Say you're eating 100 grams of protein, you might want to increase your fat to up to like 150 or so to maintain that weight.
Okay. Okay, cool.
So here's the cool thing with steaks is the emotional eating stuff. A lot of that stuff gets kind of, all those emotional eating habits, they change so much when you're eating meat. When you're eating mostly meat or exclusively animal foods, the emotional eating, you're no longer doing it to get like the crash, right? You don't get a sugar high and crash afterwards. It doesn't happen like that. It just nourishes. So a lot of that stuff
I've
is going to be.
already noticed it. The last few days where I've been eating so much crap, literally chocolate, bread, name it, just really concentrating on eating the fat and the meat and a bit of bread, which I had left over. I mean, the crashes, I'm not even getting it. So,
Here you go.
and it's been days. It's ridiculous, really.
I can hear it in
Like
your
it's
voice
quite-
too when you talk about the foods. You just call it crap. Like you sound mad at those foods, and that's good.
I am. I just like sit myself for like, why was I forcing my shit?
Right, but there you go. Now you see the cycle. You see how easy it is to fall into it, but also you see the absurdity of it. It's like, yeah,
Yes.
I'm gonna comfort eat and feel good for 10 minutes while I eat this shit, and then I'm gonna feel like shit for 5 days afterwards. How is this worth it? How is this comforting? This is not comfort. This is destructive eating. This isn't comfort eating. This is destroying me. So it's like, it's really easy to say,
Exactly.
no way, I'm
As
not
I'm
falling for that.
Pushing
Get out of
it
that.
through my teeth.
Exactly. You get out of the
God.
trap. It's like, we're not comfort eating. Let's be honest. We're torturing ourselves with that stuff. It's like 5
But
minutes
that's
of
the
pleasure.
thing.
It's like drug addiction.
People do that, yeah, but people do it because they're so they've got so many traumas that
Yep.
they haven't dealt with. And this is what I've been going through, is like an emotional transition. I'm getting rid of my old traumas that don't serve me. I'm just getting rid of it. Not me. I am peeling back the layers. I'm finding the new me, and I'm not going to feel guilty about eating meat because it's the best thing for me.
Yeah, you're
I
gonna
know
feel guilty
this,
about being
and
healthy? Come on, feel guilty about thriving? No
exactly.
way. That's the thing.
And
We get in those traumatized states and we start feeling guilty about being healthy, guilty for being joyous, right? Guilty for living, guilty for expressing ourselves. It's a trap, and it's we get out of that and we start embracing life, and I'm stoked for you. So it sounds like you're fully committed, you're fully stoked on it, and it's going to be a good round. So let's refine it. Let's get the habits. Let's get the foundations this month. You've got lots of awesome people here helping to support you. A lot of people around who are here for you. So we're all here to help you out. We're all here to help you through, and we're super excited for this month.
excellent. I'm excited too.
Right on, Emma.
This
All
year
right.
is a year for change.
There you go. 2019, it's yours. So let's do it. Let's do it. Let's let us know if you need anything. Be sure to tag us in
I
whatever
will, thank
section,
you.
or feel free to send us a private message if you got any questions. And we're
Yeah,
here
okay,
for you.
cool.
We're super excited.
Cheers, Tristan. Cheers,
Bye.
Jess.
Bye, Emma. Nice to have you
Bye.
back. All right, Brenda. What's up, Brenda? Are you there? She's on mobile, so maybe a lot of people will be listening in while they're driving or something. Feel free to unmute Brenda or Jenny.
Oh, there.
Oh, there you are.
Okay.
Hey,
Am I
Brenda.
there? Am
You're
I
here.
there?
How are you? Nice to meet you.
I'm good, thank you very much. Greetings from Canada.
What's the weather like up there right now? You guys getting a little springtime yet?
Actually, it's kind of snowing today.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. We've
Wow.
had, instead of May showers, it's been May snow flurries. So
Uh-oh. Well, a
Bye.
nice warm steak will warm will warm you up.
yeah, this snow doesn't last very long, so it's good for the moisture. We
That's
need
good.
it.
That's good. Perfect. So what brings you here, Brenda? What brought you in here today?
Okay. Well, so I started before keto. I started I kind of knew the diet had to change because I've been struggling all my life with weight or whatever. So I started Bright Line Eating, which is no flour, no sugar.
Yeah.
Did that, but the weight wouldn't stay off. So I thought, there's got to be a way that it's a more natural.
Yeah.
So I started looking into keto and really believed all of the health benefits that keto brought.
Yeah.
So I started following keto, and I'm a very detailed person. I'm an accountant, so I'm very detailed. I like all the detail, and so I was following the keto and measure my ketones. I measure my glucose, doing all the things hopefully right, but the weight just doesn't move. And it's like, well, something then obviously isn't working, because if you're doing it right, then one of the side benefits should be that you have weight loss. So I'm following, but I don't know, there's something there that just isn't, the weight isn't coming off. I don't know if it's, growing up, you've been so indoctrinated with low fat.
Yeah.
That I don't know if, and I do track it sometimes. So I don't know if I'm getting enough fat, but anyway, so I thought I, listened to all your YouTubes and podcasts, and I thought, here's a man with his, both feet on the ground, and you kind of give it the information how it is, it's not, somebody's other philosophy. So I thought, I'm going to give it a try and see if you can help me get past this stall.
Right on. So I know you've been through some rounds of antibiotics, right? You mentioned in your questionnaire here, you're kind of susceptible to certain infections and stuff because after antibiotic use, things changed as far as your health
Yeah.
goes, right?
Yeah, like urinary tract infections seem to be quite prevalent now, and I think that's more due to being postmenopausal than anything. But I know every time you take antibiotics, it creates havoc on your gut biome or your gut biome. So, there's that, and just I don't know. So I'm
Yeah.
just looking to you guys to kind of give me a
Yeah.
bit of a path here to follow.
Right on. So, in cases like that where you've got gut dysbiosis, sometimes it's better to kind of whittle it down, go real low to no fiber, and take a more carnivorous approach. So, I mean, as far as the macros go, let's make sure you're getting enough protein, and make sure you're getting enough fat. Make sure you're not restricting too much, and get you adapted to this. You mentioned, how long have you been doing keto already?
Well, about a year, I guess, been
Yeah.
following it.
Okay. So for you right now, I'd say we want to be at about like 80 to 90 grams of protein minimum.
Okay.
So let's say 90 to 100 protein just to be easy.
Okay.
So we know that we're not getting insufficient. 90 to 100 protein
Okay.
and about, let's do 130 to 140 fat.
Okay.
And we'll start out there, get you well
Okay.
adapted, see where you see it, what the baseline at that is, and what happens when we do that consistently. And focus on red meats. Focus on, wild game's fine, but focus on beef. Focus on ruminant animals that eat grass, beef, sheep, goat, stuff like that. Some fish, fine. Egg yolks, great. Butter is fine to include as a fat source. Sheep fat, stuff like that. Go for the animal fats. I think, as far as, all right, so the history of antibiotics, the UTIs and stuff like that, just the possible gut microbiota dysbiosis tells me that maybe going a little bit more towards a carnivorous approach would be better. It's up to you, but focus a majority of the calories on those fats and proteins. Right, if you want to eat if you want to have some vegetables, it's fine. But I think doing an elimination diet and see which vegetables you're actually sensitive to could be a better route.
When I did do a little stint of just carnivorous, and I gotta say, when I was measuring my ketones, that's when it actually was using just diet with no exercise. It was about 0.8, which is the highest it's been for me without having to include exercise.
Yeah. So what happens also is when you remove the plants, it's so crazy. And I would have never thought this years ago, but I've kind of come to the conclusion that I think people are depleting their body of minerals when they eat too many plants on a keto diet rather than adding, because people who do a carnivorous approach very rarely require any electrolyte supplementation, but the electrolytes tend to get thrown off with high vegetable intake. They tend to get thrown off a lot. So, but also, the gut stuff with gut dysbiosis, removal of fiber seems to be one of the best things for it. And it's not just what you're removing, it's what you're feeding as well. So there are amino acids and fatty acids, or rather bacteria that eat these amino acids and fatty acids and create neurotransmitters, create B vitamins out of them. So what I want to do is focus on the fats and the proteins on the animal foods. Nose to tail if you can get some liver in there every once in a while, some bone marrow, stuff like that to keep it interesting. That's great. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But let's
now, when you say bone marrow, what does that mean?
Well, like, I don't know. Also, buco steaks are really nice because they got that big bone marrow piece in the middle. But you can also get marrow bones, just straight up bones with marrow, and get the fat from those bones, and it's just amazing. It's an incredible fat source.
And you eat the fat.
Yeah, you eat the marrow.
Yeah,
it's amazing. So you get like cross-cut marrow bones that are maybe an inch long or something. Sometimes you get a long cut where it's the whole bone and you get all the marrow inside there. Having some of that with a meal, it's a great fat source, and it's very, very nutrient dense, and it's got properties that other parts of the animal don't have. A lot of our stem cells are actually stored in our fat and in our marrow. Right. So there's a lot of immune boosting factors in there. Marrow is amazing. Excuse me, my nose is getting stuffy. I gotta clear it out a little bit. If I talk for too long, it dams up here. It's getting better with the rain. The rain is healthy. But
So then, if you like, I see people make their own bone broth, and that's with those bones. So then, when you're done making your bone broth, you just eat the marrow out of that bone. Is that what you're like?
yeah, sure. I mean, I just eat the marrow raw. Actually, I like it raw. It's especially from the lower leg where it's a little bit softer. I put it in the fridge and I'll just pop it out and put it on the side of my steak. I'll cook up the steak and have some marrow on the side. Some people like ossobuco, where it's the a shank is gonna have a good piece of marrow in the middle there. You just cook that up like a normal steak and eat the marrow too. So it's just getting different fat sources. Suet is really good. We talked about sheep suet earlier. I'm a huge fan of sheep suet as a fat source. It's so digestible, so soft, so delicious. So yeah, the sheep suet could be cool. Butter's another
I
good
don't
source of
know.
fat.
We're cow country. Well, here in Alberta, we're cow country, so I don't know if I can find sheep soup.
Well, you can get beef suet though, right?
Yeah.
So beef suet's great too. Just beef suet, bone marrow. Ask around. See. Sometimes bone marrow is really well priced.
Okay. Well, maybe some of the local farmers would have it because I know in the grocery store, I used to see suet, but I don't see suet anymore. So
Interesting.
everything in those meat counters are all processed foods or prepackaged this or prepackaged that. So
Ugh,
it's hard to find.
what a shame.
Hard to find it just in the raw state. But I will look.
You know what? In the U.S., Craigslist is a pretty popular place where people will sell stuff. You can usually find local producers, but also you ask around, find butchers, find a local butcher. Sometimes you can make some good connections there.
Okay. Okay. How does exercise? I just started exercising again, so I usually eat breakfast and then don't eat again till supper. So and I exercise at noon.
That's great.
And I don't eat anything. I just kind of drink water and have a cup of coffee or whatever. So, is that enough to like? I'm not putting myself in a situation where I'm doing,
You're
something
fine.
negative as opposed to positive.
You're absolutely fine. What we should do is just make sure. Let's break that. Get your 2 meals in per day. Each one of those meals is going to be about 45 grams of protein and like 60 to 65 grams of fat, or 60 to 70 grams of fat, and have those 2 meals, and you should be fine. You're going to be really. I think you're going to be very satiated with this, and we will probably end up dropping the fat back a little bit. But just because I wanna see how you feel at that 130 to 140 grams of fat.
Okay. Okay. So, I know I shouldn't focus on weight and the scale.
That's fine. The scale is relevant. Get on the scale. Same conditions. You can weigh in each morning. And I think I forgot to answer that question for Emma as well, or maybe it was Jenny. Weigh in each morning. Understand that weight loss is not linear though, right? Like if you might be up 5 pounds one day, down 6 pounds the next day. Don't let this bring you through a roller coaster of emotions. Write down your scale weight. Forget about it the rest of the day. Don't base your day on what that scale tells you. What's more important, you could see that your clothes fit looser, but the scale doesn't move, and that's a good thing. You could also see that if you take a waist measurement, you can get a good idea of what's going on there as well. So taking a waist measurement can be useful too, and jump on that scale, see what it says, write it down, forget about it, move forward.
So how much, I'm postmenopausal, and you just always read about the postmenopausal belly. Well, I know that because that's my biggest issue is just that belly, and everything else feels like it's getting, smaller, but not that. You think it's the vegetable?
I mean, it could be a lot of things. I mean, I don't really know your history of everything you've been eating, so it could be hormonal. You could be more inclined to be, maybe if you're stressed out. Sometimes the stress can make us hold more water weight. It could be hormonal. It could just be long-term weight gain that you've been going through, and sometimes we don't notice till the end. But I think the best thing, let's focus on setting the foundation. Let's get the diet really dialed in, and let's see how you feel with this. Get on the scale. Don't let the scale tell you how to feel. It's going to go in the right direction. 2 pounds a week that's really good results. If we can lose 2 pounds a week, that's great fat loss. Right? 1 pound a week is great too. Anything more than that is just amazing. So let's dial it in.
Okay.
Let's see how you feel, and let's set the habits, and we'll make sure that we're looking at this as a long-term thing, not just a quick race to the finish line. Because if you get rid of the sugar cravings, if you can get rid of those habits, that's step one. You know, the body's going to line up, the body's going to dial in, and a lot of postmenopausal women do have problems losing weight, but a lot of them respond really, really well to keto.
Okay.
Let me make a little bit of an adjustment. Let's do 90 to 100 protein, and let's do 120 fat.
25.
120 fat. We don't want to go too high on the fat and force it in. Let's see
All right.
how you feel there,
Okay.
and see what the scale tells us, but also let's measure your waist and see where that belly's doing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, Brenda.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you. Really nice to meet
Bye.
you. All right. So there's Jenny, right? Is it Jenny? Jenny Ray?
Yeah.
Is that her first name? Is Jenny? What's up, Jenny? Are you here? Sorry that you're last. It's like, what's it, like 2.5 hours in? 2 hours. 2.5 almost. Jenny, if you're there, feel free to unmute. If not, sometimes people walk away. Cool. All right. Well, it looks like Jenny's not here. We've gotten to talk to almost everybody today. Sorry, guys, for the we did a marathon session here, but we got to hit on everybody's questions, which is great. We try to give you guys as much attention as you need, and give you as much one-on-one time as you need. We're here to help you. We're here to guide you through this process. We're here to help you to dial in the diet. We've got some more advanced people in the group that are always willing to help as well. So big shout out to Nathaniel. Thank you so much for helping out and for offering some of your wisdom to the folks here. We've got a great group of people here, very supportive of each other. Everybody's ready to get the results. Everybody's ready to learn more, and we're all learning together. So Johan, Tisha, Jenny, Emma, Brenda, and the other Jenny. So nice to talk to you guys today. So nice to get to know you. Very good to meet you, and we look forward to seeing you thrive with this. So remember, it's about long-term habits. It's about setting the foundation. Let's make sure we're getting enough protein and fat. We're going to use those animal fats to fuel our body. We're going to focus on the fatty cuts of meat. We're going to focus on the steaks. We're going to focus on the eggs, the fish, the shellfish. We're going to focus on animal foods. And, yeah, we're really excited. Let's see how this goes, guys. We'll be here on Wednesday. What time on Wednesday?
4 p.m. Eastern.
4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday. We'll be in here again for Q&A. So we'll see you guys then. If you got any questions, you feel free to private message us. And, yeah, we're really looking forward to this month, guys. All right. Bye, everybody.